Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Hiruzen seals off Naruto memories of his childhood part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Sakura's eyes widened at the sudden appearance of her teammate. Much like the rest of the woman, her hair was alighted yet unburned by orange flames, brushed softly by the wind. Emerald orbs slowly drifted up and stayed on crimson, demonic ones, crinkled by a grin spread over the whiskered face. If she hadn't been in so much shock at the sight of her best friend, Sakura would have smiled in relief. The blonde had once again showed up to save the day. Sakura! Are you alright, Naruto? Watch out! The alarmed yell had brought them out of their short-lived conversation. Both turned to the left to see a frantically running Konoha ninja. At least, that's what Sakura suspected from his green flak jacket. Behind him, a woman with fiery red hair flowing down tied up high, reaching her mid-back, was walking calmly in comparison, an engraved line cutting through the symbol of a whirlpool. On first sight she looked so much like Uzumaki Kushina, but taking a closer look, Naruto realized that the face was different. Sapphire eyes grew wide in shock, before the blonde Jinchuriki barely avoided a kick behind her that was aimed for her head. She turned to see another Zetsu clone and avoided his attacks, throwing in a few of her own. Why would she ducked and quickly got up again to pound the plant man's face in, but her hits distracted by her thoughts. How did Kabuto get a hold of? The ever-growing bunch of Zetsus had left Naruto peevish, and creating two firm claws, she powered a swirl of chakra. She dispersed one limb, as it has already served its purpose, and outstretched the other. The Rasengan charged through the crowd of white and green. None was left alive. Sakura, who's just finished treating her formerly dying patient, had her lips parted in pure awe. Before she had the chance to give a quick cheer, the pinkette noticed a blur of crimson from the corner of her eyes. They widened in horror at the sight of a seal's-filled hand after the half-dead woman from earlier came into her better view. Naruto, said girl turned a mere second too late. The moment the woman's arm curved around her, her palm and fingertips came into contact with Naruto's stomach. The seal that had previously held the 9 tails at bay closed painstakingly slowly, and the orange chakra that surrounded Naruto subsided. She shut her eyes before snapping them open again, and skimmed her hands through hand seals. She ignored the strange sensation that had wafted over her and instead focused on taking out and opening a storage scroll. Her hand slammed it down as it was in midair and, with a pop, a tri-pronged kunai appeared within them. Without a moment's hesitation, she threw it towards a clear space, and activated the Flying Thunder God technique. Azure eyes fluttered open and immediately surveyed its surroundings. Naruto sat upright from the grass, stretching as a small frown settled on her face, trying to adjust to the darkness of the night. A completely different setting from where she had been a few mere seconds ago. How long had she been knocked out? Or the more appropriate question is, what knocked her out? The technique the Whirlpool Kunoichi used? Possibly. And also maybe because she hadn't used the Hiruzen in a long while. But that didn't explain why she was out here, in the open, without a spot of blood or carcass or anything to show that there was a bloody war going on in sight. Only after her hitaiite fell from her forehead and was by her neck did she notice the feeling of her hair tied into 2 bunches. Bringing her hands up to confirm it, she scowled. Was this some prank? Sakura knew she didn't like putting up her hair like that. Not after her training trip with Jiraiya. Racking her hair out of the horrid hairstyle, she noticed that instead of her long, slender fingers she had grown to narcissistically love, short, chubby hands were what greeted her eyes. Naruto looked down and started hyperventilating. She patted her chest a few times, paling even more as she did so. Through her sleepy and dizzy state she had failed to notice the absence of her womanly growth and her unbelievably baggy clothes. Her slightly tight, orange pants that had previously reached down to just below her knees were close to falling off, while her black and also orange jacket slung off one shoulder revealing a white shirt. Her shoes were many sizes larger, and she picked up her weapon holster along with the bandage strips. The latter had given her some relief. At least she had something to hold her clothes together. But why did she shrink? Naruto then noticed one important detail. What happened to her chakra? She quickly slapped her hands together and concentrated. A bead of sweat trickled down the side of her face when she found that her chakra pools were much more violent than it had been before. Not only that, but it felt as if her levels had decreased greatly. It's also taking me so much more time to channel my chakra. A worried crease developed between her brows, the graveness of the situation dawning her. She hadn't exactly shrunk. Her age shrunk. A vague image of the fiery-haired woman shoving her hand against her stomach flashed in her mind. Suddenly feeling faint, she unzipped her jacket and shook it off. The stomach was where a person's spiritual and physical chakra is created, isn't it? Reaching the hem of her shirt, she lifted it and saw the glowing red seals that littered around her stomach. Through the years of her training with the perverted Sannin and her mastery at Fuinjutsu, she could make out most of the seals. The characters drawn on her skin weren't looking too good on her. Not only that, but because she had activated the Flying Thunder God technique that was also formed on the same area, it seemed to have mixed, and another stack to overpower her problems. A curse escaped her lips. Upon closer inspection, she noticed that under the recent seals the hack fuin which had kept the 9 tails sealed before she unlocked it was seeping back into her skin, which meant that she has to go through the inner battle with the 9 tails all over again unless she found a way to return back to her 16-year-old self. She shook her head. It was best to find out about her current situation in a safer place. Using the bandage tape, she wound her pants tightly around her hips and tied her jacket around her waist. Even with her heightened senses, due to her unwilling partner that lived in her gut, she couldn't hear a single person around. One thing she clearly noticed after thoroughly looking around was that the area changed. Naruto growled in frustration. She had seen the same distinct, giant rock before she shrunk and after. Even though that single feature had proven the place was the same, it was as if all the trees and shrubs blown away had grown back in place. She was sure she had checked every inch of the forest, and the camps that were supposed to be around. Now she wasn't really sure anymore if the ninjas had just packed the tents up and ditched her. Not only was it highly unlikely in the first place, but there was absolutely no trace of a 5 nations worth of ninjas, Genins not included, ever being here. Plopping back on the boulder, she yawned tiredly. The Hiruzen had taken a lot of chakra unlike it usually does. Strange, her eyes drew to a close, and she succumbed to exhaustion. Miraculously, she wasn't taken by enemies. No, instead, she woke up at the sounds of cheerful birds chirping, and a wonderful kink situated on her neck. A brilliant way to start the morning, Naruto, she thought sarcastically to herself. Using her arms to prop herself up, bending her neck was absolutely impossible since it would only result in a sharp stab of pain. She noticed the position she was in. Oh, her parents would be so proud, won't they? Somehow she had managed to crawl up on the rock in her sleep and fallen off halfway without waking herself up. How on earth did the sweet chirpings of birds do the job? Shaking her head at her odd sleeping tendencies, she grumbled bemusedly. Where were the others? There was absolutely no one around. With her mind clearer than it had been last night, she was sure that everyone had really packed up and left without her. A gnawing feeling snapped her out of her thoughts, and she would have shrugged it off, had it not come again the next second when she stepped away from the rock, stronger. After a moment of absent thinking, she snapped her fingers. Now she remembered why she needed to go back. If there was one place with information on Uzushiogakure and its jutsus, it would most likely be Konoha. Uzumaki Mito could have stashed it away somewhere a long time ago. All the blonde had to do was rush back to her home village's libraries and the Hokage Tower. There was just one problem with that, though. Where exactly is Konoha? Scratch that. Where exactly is she? Naruto hadn't really kept a clear head when she was going to the war field. After several hours, long hours, she had finally stumbled upon a small town. There wasn't a single ninja living in it as far as she could tell, and the civilians sent her wary glances, most because she was wearing a forehead protector at her age, or what they thought was her age. One kind old woman had given her directions to Konohagakure, which was about a week away. Thankfully, the granny had only asked if she would be fine alone and nothing else. Naruto refilled her energy with many bowls of ramen. Apparently, the coins she had were worth a lot more than it had been before. Odd, seeing as it was a time of war, not the most normal of wars, but a war nonetheless. But by the time she had been finished stuffing her stomach, it was nightfall. Fortunately, through her hunger she still had the right mind and made sure to keep her money. Renting an inn, she immediately got in and slept like a log. Naruto gritted her teeth once again as another wave of pain attacked her head. It had been her 5th migraine during her way to Konoha, and 2 days had passed. The more she began or tried to think only served to make it stronger, often distracting her from staying on the path. She groaned, glaring down at the ground as she clutched her scalp. What brought this on? Although it had only been a few tries, she had never gotten these effects from the Hiruzen, so it had to be the sealing jutsu the Yuzu Kunoichi had landed her with. So far, she had reviewed the recent happenings and took a closer look at the marks on her stomach, but only came up with 2 things. 1. Some of the characters show that it is a sort of chakra exchange jutsu, more complicated than most of the seals she had ever seen. 2. It works fast to spread the user's chakra around the victim's body. Because of those 2 results, an ominous feeling was slowly bubbling up inside her. Naruto's brows drew down as she bit her lip. The chakra control she had now was horrible, not only because of her shrunken state but because of the seal she had examined. While fighting her headaches for the next couple of days, she had taken off her hitate and stuffed it in the hidden pockets of her jacket. Looking at the open gates she knew all too well from a few meters away, a smile lighted her face. Her heart pounded excitedly at the thought of possibly finding her old clan's techniques and the way to return to her former age. Guards she had never seen before were standing securely in front of the tall walls, and Naruto dashed to them. A frown developed on her lips when they stiffened at her approach. Didn't they recognize her? Even if she was changed to a defenseless child, her hair and prominent whiskers should catch them off guard. But as she got closer, she noticed something different with the village she was so familiar with. The buildings seemed to have reverted back to the ones she was running around during her childhood. And upon closer inspection, her mind blanked out. The image of only 3 stone heads on the Hokage monument was the last thing she saw before she fainted. Naruto. She stirred in the warm water, before the dark voice boomed again. Naruto. Her eyes snapped open, and she sat up slowly, rubbing her pounding head. She looked up at the giant 9 tails. Before blinking, she hadn't expected to see the cage again. What, oh? She remembered. The seal had reverted back to its original state when she was affected by the whirlpool's jutsu. "Kyubi," she greeted. He sneered down at her. "You are a careless, reckless idiot, so I've been told." Other than the way Kyubi's black lips curled downwards further, her reply gained no response. "I don't know whether to praise or curse your stupidity, girl. At least your inner form is still the same." "Huh!" The fox demon growled and slammed his claws down, splashing large amounts of water towards her. The teen scowled. She took off and began wringing her jacket, trying to dry it. She then noticed her hands and arms. A big, relieved grin slowly crept up on her face. "Hey! My fingers aren't chubby anymore. Would you shut up for a second?" He sighed, trying to lessen the frustration he felt. "The technique that changed you, from what I can tell, if you don't stop it quickly, it would affect your mind as well." "What?" His eyes looked down squarely on hers, the scorn dimmed down by his seriousness. "Your chakra is being eaten, you could say, by the whirlpool Kunoichi's chakra. I'm not entirely sure how such a thing is possible, but the user's chakra is multiplied when it passes through the seal and goes out the victim's body. You could say it's like bacteria, and that the white blood cells are outnumbered." Naruto's brows furrowed in confusion as she tried to soak in the information, and she said slowly, hesitantly, "Is the enemy's chakra still inside me?" "Of course. There's still more than plenty enough to get inside your brain, but right now it's still swarming around it. That's probably how you turned younger. I'd say you're between 4 and 5 after the jutsu's effects are done. I'm not entirely sure about this theory, but you're planning on finding out about it anyways, aren't you?" "Why, yeah." "Well, you better get to it faster. The chakra's going to reach your brain soon. And after it does, it will consume the chakra working it, making you lose your memories along the way." Her eyes were wide, and a nervous bead of sweat rolled down the side of her face. "What will happen after it's finished?" The blood pumping in her veins felt like ice, and she knew the answer before he even said it. For the first time in her life, his blood-red eyes averted from her. "You'll die." Silence stretched, their posture tense as the words crashed down on her. Naruto flexed her hands, as if trying to confirm that she was still there, in her mindscape. "How long do I have?" He shook his head, and his demonic orbs were directed back down at her. "I'm not sure. You'll have to find that out on your own." He sighed heavily, as if trying to lessen the weight on his shoulders. "It's just my estimation, but you probably have a couple of years at most. Also, I'll do what I can to exterminate the chakra, but I can't guarantee that it'll be much. This lousy seal your father made is blocking the way." "I see." She relaxed, but only slightly. The demon fox then pinned her with a glare. "Don't laze around. You better not give up. I'm just as affected as you are, you pathetic excuse of a human. And remember, you won't be able to save your precious people if you die, which would be a waste since you're a long way back in time." Naruto smiled softly. "You should know better than that. I'm not the type to give up, am I? And you're now one of my friends, Kyubi. Like Hachibi and Killer Bee." She missed the way his eyes widened when she remembered his last comment. "Hey, Kyubi, should I rip the paper off?" "There's no time for that now. You should wake up, go." Wait. Before she could even ask what was happening, she had been forcefully pushed back to consciousness outside of her mind. The giant fox lied back down on his stomach. Kurama scoffed with a smirk on his face as he rested his head on his crossed paws. Friends, his glowing red eyes slowly drew to a close. That idiot seemed to have been exhausted. "There's odd activity in her chakra. It's as if another is invading her system, and we can't stop." "Oh, she's awake." The young blonde blinked a few times, and was willing herself to calm down at the sight of Namikaze Minato standing by the door. When she sat up, some signs of alert must have been apparent on her face, so she covered it up by flicking her eyes around the room in false fright. Where am I?" She already had a pretty good idea where. The smell of anesthetics was attacking her sensitive nose. "Kanahigaku's hospital," he replied gently, a warm smile on his tanned face. "I'm Minato. May you tell us your name?" She then noticed the nurses shuffling to her with their hands in a green glow. In shock of seeing her father so soon, the blonde hadn't noticed the other occupants of the room. "Naruto. My name's Naruto." Saying her last name was most likely not a good idea. "All right, Naruto, how are you feeling?" "Great, never better." A lie, but he didn't need to know that. She took off the blanket on her, realizing that she was in a hospital gown. "Where are my clothes?" "They're right here," a nurse said with a bright smile on her face as she passed it over. "They seemed a little big on you. Hope you don't mind, Naruto-chan." She shook her head, politely receiving her bundle. "Thank you. I was planning on growing into them." She discreetly patted the spot of where her Hittite was in her jacket, and inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. Her conversation with Kyubi flashed in her mind, and she let a small frown mar her face. Staring down at the boots on top of her clothes, she absently noted that it had been thoroughly washed. She wouldn't be able to do everything on her own. She'd need help. But she looked at Minato through her eyelashes, who, a barely visible smile touched her lips, and she looked back down at her jacket. "Looks like she'll pay the third Hokage a visit." "Naruto, HM?" Her attention was reverted back to the blonde man. "I'm going to ask you a few questions. Is that alright with you? She nodded, and matched his grin. Good. First off, how old are you, Naruto? Remembering Kyubi's words, she answered without missing a beat. About 4.5 years old. I see. Hesitantly this time, he asked, why is a child as young as you out in the forest alone? My parents died on the day I was born. Naruto resisted the urge to cringe at the bluntness of her words. The blonde's face shifted from wary to solemn in understanding. I'm sorry. I'm fine, especially since her father was alive and kicking right in front of her. Who were you with until now? Oh, I had a teacher who taught me stuff and took care of me when he found me as a baby, and we stayed in a few small villages for a while. She chewed her lip thoughtfully, cooking up a lie that would pass through an elite ninja. I got separated from him after an attack by ninjas, and he told me to run here while he held them off. She formed a crease between her brows and tried to imprint her words onto her brain. It wouldn't be a good idea to forget and arouse suspicion. I see. He averted his gaze. I think it is best if we let you talk to the Hokage. He'll be the one to decide what happens from here on. Naruto hid her triumphant grin with a grateful smile. Thank you. I guess we should buy you some clothes first, though. Minato watched the bubbly girl in amusement as she talked on about how it had always been her dream of being in Konoha, and soaked the buildings around them with all. She now wore a plain orange shirt and black khaki pants that reached to her knees. Her shoes were the usual navy blue sandals, and her hair had been tied up in twin pigtails. Her reluctance ended rather quickly when he stated how cute she looked, and the memory alone brought a smile to his face. The girl was weak against compliments, much too similar to a certain fiery redhead. His amusement dwindled down to a mere facade now, as he pondered more onto that thought. Not only was Naruto's habits and personality alike with one Uzumaki Kushina, her facial structure as well as body frame was like a complete copy of her, only smaller and seemingly more fragile. Not to mention how similar her hair is to mine. Naruto, he caught her attention immediately, and gave a light smile. Your sensei must be very strong if he managed to take care of you and himself alone, seeing as it is a time of war. Have you done any shinobi training with him, HM? Oh yeah? But as she paused, choosing her words carefully so she wouldn't sound like her age. He said I have a lot of chakra, so I'm still trying to gain better control. Ah, I see. It'll be difficult to make a clone then, huh? Well, he pointed that out to me and showed me this really cool version of it. He said that he got it off from a friend or something. She grinned. This lie was perfect. It's called the yeah. The Shadow Clone Jutsu. His eyes widened in surprise. Can you do it? No, not yet. I didn't really have time to get around to doing it, because the time he showed me how to do it was when we were attacked. Ah, her own sentence reminded her of her current situation, and she looked down at her feet. Funny, she thought to herself in an attempt to lighten her spirits. I never intended on stirring up a half-lie. She paused mentally. Can you even call it that? We're here, Naruto. Oh. Naruto looked up at the red tower. Nostalgia and longing wafted over her until she snapped herself out of it. That's a huge building. I guess it is, isn't it? He said nonchalantly, but she noticed that he was subtly watching her and inwardly cursed. She had often been told that she was like an open book, or rather, her eyes were like an open book. It revealed much too many of her thoughts and emotions. The two blondes reached the office without any trouble. The staff didn't even bat an eye when Minato passed through the guards with her. So now, the two stood in front of Sarutobi Hiruzen, who had a brown brow raised in question. After a moment, something seemed to have clicked in his head as he looked back and forth between the two. Minato, did you by any chance? The young man waved off his concern with a smile. No, Hokage-sama. She's the one who was found outside the gates, remember? Oh, so you're her then. He didn't let his eyes lift from Naruto's as he said dismiss the blonde. Minato, you may go now. With a bow, the Namikaze left the room. So, what's your full name, child? Hiruzen asked softly, and Naruto perked up. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Ah, so I was correct with my assumption then. Well, seeing as I haven't seen Kushina having an inflated stomach before in her many visits, I'm guessing that you don't come from here, do you? The time traveler shook her head. I'm from, well, just an estimation, but most likely 20 to 30 years into the future. She chewed her lip, eyeing the aging man carefully. But do you believe what I'm saying, Hokage-sama? Partly, he admitted, folding his hands in front of his mouth and leaning onto the desk. But time travel isn't impossible. What is making this hard to believe is that the person who's sent back many years is a girl as young as you. Your mental state shouldn't be able to handle, that's the thing. She lifted up her shirt and brought it to her teeth, before clapping her hands together to gather chakra. She had been practicing a little of controlling it on her way back to Konoha. The most recent seal, the one on top, is the seal I received from, well, you could say a zombie who used to be a whirlpool kunoichi. Hiruzen was quite sure he saw the hack fuin underneath the 2 layers of seals, but stashed it away for later. Zombie? The situation at my time is kind of crazy right now, so I'll explain what's happening later. Naruto broke her hands apart, and patted her shirt back in place. I understand. He actually didn't. And you said that the user of that fuin is from Yuzushiogakure? Yes, and this seal is what caused me to become 4 to 5 years old, but I've told Minato that I'm 4.5. When is your birthday, Naruto? October the 10th. That's 6 months away from now, so what you chose is a good age. Which would make her only 8 days older than Asuma. Do you know how the seal works? Sort of. I've found out that it's a type that exchanges chakra, only altered so that it would make the user's chakra multiple times stronger and deadlier. You're smart to have figured that out on your own. How old were you originally? Naruto gave an awkward laugh. Yeah, I'm good with seals. He doesn't have to know that Kyuubi figured it out. I was 16, and quite developed, she thought in regretful dismay. I see 12 years. How about your mind? You shouldn't be able to think like your proper age if you're inside a 4-year-old's body. That's right, and most likely because of that I have headaches. Now that she thought about it, she had felt very lightheaded a while ago. Must be because I've lost a lot of blood, which could have been caused by my brain adjusting in my skull, but I'm no expert medical and scientific logic, so I'll need to find out more about the technique before I can jump into conclusions. Your theory seems to be the answer, but you're right about the last part. Pinching the bridge of his nose, he sighed. Well, this is taking away the doubt I had. I'll also run a blood test to check if everything is true, though. I can't let my guard down, after all. Yup, I understand. So let's have it now. Naruto faltered. Wah, now? Yes, now. The village leader brushed his beard with his fingers. Your condition seems fatal if we don't do anything about it soon, but I'll have to see if you really are Minato and Kushina's daughter. I'll need to confirm everything before taking action. She nodded. Most DNA paternity test results take over a week. The Sarutobi's chakra spiked before an Umbu appeared in the office and bent down, waiting for his orders. Bring our best doctor here at once. Hi, Hokage-sama. Like how he came, the masked shinobi quietly flickered away. Naruto, Hiruzen successfully caught her undivided attention. How have you gone back in this time? 30 years from the future at most, was it? She nodded once. It could be more, but I doubt it from how old Dad looked to be. Naruto chewed her lip. Well, how I got here was through an accident on my part. Accident? I panicked when the zombie attacked, and tried to use the Hiruzen to escape. She scratched her cheek sheepishly. I couldn't use it as well as Dad, and so I had to make 2 seals for the jutsu to work, one on the kunai and the other in my stomach. The man refrained from slapping a palm to his face, and calmly drew back into his chair. Then the Hiruzen and the Yuzukunoichi seal combined when used at the same time? Pretty much. Naruto shuffled her feet and let her fingers fidget with her clothes at Hiruzen's sigh. Are you mad? No, Naruto. He brought his hand to his forehead before letting it slowly sink down to cover the bottom half of his face, and his voice was slightly muffled. Just calmly handling disbelief. You're doing a good job. Removing the hand, he chuckled, shaking his head. Well, I'm pretty convinced that everything you've told me is the truth, so I'll tell Minato and Kushina that you'll be staying with them for the time being. And Naruto blinked. But now, the Hokage seemed confused. You don't want to? She furiously shook her head, waving her arms around before they settled into a cross. No, I do. She brought them down to her sides, eyes downcast. But I'll be a bother, won't I? I mean, in their eyes, I'll be intruding their home since they don't know that I'm their daughter, and I can't tell them that. It would only make things more complicated for them. The man smiled. She was surely their child, putting others before herself. Well then, I'll make this their mission as Konoha shinobi. It would reflect badly on the Hokage if I left a young girl by herself, no matter how safe this village is. Naruto nodded, and he continued, the smile off of his face as he took on the face of a real Hokage. Naruto, keep everything we've discussed as well as what you know of the future classified. 2 knocks sounded the moment Naruto nodded, and the Kage called, Enter. I'm truly sorry to keep you waiting, Hokage-sama. The doctor came in, bowing sincerely. No worries, Isao. More importantly, have a DNA paternity test taken for Naruto here, Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato. The Hokage stood, ignoring Isao's shocked expression. Make sure that this and the results are kept only between us 3. Regaining his composure, he bowed again. Hi, Hokage-sama. He turned to the girl. Please follow me, Naruto-san. Said girl nodded, stuffing her dislike of needles deep in her brain. Complaining wasn't going to help anyone, she sighed. Hiruzen stifled a yawn as he gazed down at his painstakingly large pile of paperwork, mankind's worst enemy. He opened one of the desk's drawers and took out the academy enrollment sheet. She'd definitely be a strong ally for the time being, what with her large chakra reserves. He grumbled. The DNA paternity test was pretty much a waste of time, but it was better to be safe than sorry, he reminded himself. Finished with filling the paper out, he let his strained hand relax by shaking it. One major problem is her chakra control, though. He can tell just by sensing it that her chakra pools was like a sea during a storm. Sakuma would surely be able to help her, he chuckled. That man's good with kids. After calling the man over, he had a smile on his face, happy with the turn of events. But, at the reminder of the word zombie, it soon dissolved. What did that girl mean? The Sarutobi sighed. I should have asked her to tell me about what happened. Even if it did change the future, it would have been for the better, wouldn't it? Naruto glanced back down at the quickly written address and back up at the door in front of her nervously. Was this really the place? The moment that thought crossed her head, the blade of a knife pierced and lodged on the wood. The steel point was a mere centimeter away from the bridge of her nose as she stared at it, cross-eyed, in absolute terror. She almost let out a shriek, but it somehow caught in her throat, so only a strangled sound escaped her lips. The door swung open to reveal a beautiful, red-haired woman in a white dress along with a green vest. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry about that." She plucked the knife out, before gazing down at the frozen girl. Her face slowly evolved from a sheepish smile to a wide, joyful, and pleased grin. "Ah, you must be." Kushina Minato's voice came from inside the apartment, before taking the knife from her hands. "Ah, hello again, Naruto," said Blonde gulped, her big blue eyes warily locked on the slit made in the middle of the door. She turned back to the couple, before smiling back. "Good afternoon, Kushina-san, Minato-san." The fiery redhead ruffled her bangs playfully. "Oh, quit it with the honorifics. We'll be under the same roof, so what is the need in that, eh? You can just call us Ne-chan and Nai-chan, or maybe even Ka-chan and Tu-chan." Naruto felt her eyes sting, before they crinkled against her smile. Giggling, she said, "Then I won't hold back, Ka-chan, Tu-chan," before she entered the welcoming home with them. Kushina and Minato watched the girl take everything in with smiles on their faces. It was the start of a close, happy family. "Naruto, what about your breakfast?" Kushina shouted from the kitchen as Naruto struggled to put on her sandals at the Genken. "No thank you. I'm going to be super late for my first meeting." It had been 2 days since she entered the household, and like she had exclaimed, she was running late for her very first meeting with the man who was supposed to train her. "Then at least eat toast on the way. You won't be able to do a very good job if you don't eat breakfast," Kushina said as she gave it to her and opened the door. "Be careful, alright? Hi, Ka-chan." The blonde waved goodbye before holding her toast with her teeth, and closed the door behind her. Minato came up behind his fondly sighing girlfriend with a smile, and slipped his arms around her waist. "You really turned into her mother, huh? And it's only been 2 days. You've turned into her father, as well, Minato." "Besides, it wasn't hard at all," she replied, kissing his cheek. "She's so sweet, and looks like you. And you?" Then he added teasingly, "Also acts like you, too, only a little more calm." Kushina huffed, hiding her amusement. "I can't disagree with you there, though." A pause stretched between them, both swimming in their own thoughts. "Do you think?" "I've thought about it vaguely the moment I saw her." She chewed her bottom lip, a blush filling her cheeks. "But it's not possible. I mean, we never." He settled a hand on top of her head fondly. "Well, we can't really do anything about it, so let's let it go for now. Hokage-sama doesn't seem like he'll explain any time soon." Minato finally stepped away from her, smiling once again. "Let's get some breakfast, HM?" Naruto sighed. Hopefully she won't get the headaches today. They were less frequent now, but whenever they attacked it would full blow and longer. Unlike before, when it was only about a minute, now it would last 10 or more. Since she had nothing to do over the last 2.5 days, Minato and Kushina were quite constantly on missions. All she did was practice controlling her chakra, only stopping for meals and talking with her parents. She had secretly mastered the Kage Bunshin after eating her dinner and helping Kushina wash the dishes, which took her approximately 3 hours, and that was only to make one perfectly solid clone. Minato had got mad at her out of worry for sure, but was proud of her progress nonetheless. The rest of her time until leaving the house was spent on training, though this morning she practiced without a clone. So she was pretty sure that she had improved was a heap of a lot better than before. Not anywhere close to what she had when she was 16, but it was good enough to be decent for her age. Briefly, she wondered who her trainer might be. But even if she did, she probably won't know the guy anyway. She had finished her toast, and slowed down when she noticed that she was going to reach the meeting place on time from the public clock. So, when she saw a man with long hair and coal eyes, beside him a small, probably a little taller than her though, masked boy, both with silver hair, she did a double take. Hatake Kakashi, her previous teacher, and Hatake Tsukumo? Wait, he's still alive? That can only mean one thing. Inside, she was bouncing off walls with pure, unadulterated glee. She was so going to give Kakashi the happiness he deserves. "This is the girl I have to train with," he muttered irritably, before turning to his father. "She looks so weak." His words rang loud and hard in her ears, the appalled look on her face dwindling to a serious, calm look, but her eyes were ice cold. "What was that?" I said. Tsukumo slapped the back of the boy's head with a pleasant smile on his face. "Sorry about that, Naruto. He's not a morning person." Naruto reluctantly let go. She wouldn't have been able to win against Kakashi, anyways, with her lousy taijutsu skills and very limited arsenal of jutsus. "Good morning, my name is Naruto." She dipped her head down, obviously facing the father. "I'm Hatake Tsukumo, and this runt here is Hatake Kakashi. Pleased to meet you, Naruto." Tsukumo pushed his son's head down. Naruto's face brightened with a smile. "Nice to meet you too, Tsukumo-sensei." It turned forced when she turned to the younger Hatake, "Kakashi-san." He merely huffed. Tsukumo sighed at his son, before looking at the blonde. "I've been told to focus on your chakra control, so may you tell me what drills you have tried?" She shuffled on her feet at Kakashi's obvious scrutinizing glare and tried to match it with her own. "I've used Kage Bunshin. Shadow Clone?" both Ataki said in surprise. I can't do a regular clone because I have lousy chakra control, which is caused by my larger than the average reserves. I also have another reason for it, but it's classified. The three knew she wasn't boasting, Kakashi because of her slight shyness of saying it. I use the clones to practice holding a leaf to my head while a fan's on. I can't train outside, and tried wall climbing, but that one I only just started, Kakashi huffed. He'd started walking up trees the moment he turned 4. Pouting under his mask, he kicked the soil. Why did he have to train with some random girl in blonde pigtails? Why didn't his father just continue training him only? By the time he had just turned 4, he could read, write, do complicated math equations, and partly understand what the adults said. He understood orders fairly well. He did whatever his teachers and, most importantly, of course, father told him to, and tried to do whatever he could to please his father. He had done his best when his mother left him, the best he could do so that his mother wouldn't worry up in heaven. It's not fair. He'll show his father that he can do a whole lot better than that blonde. He's my dad, so he should train me. Not some outsider, who didn't try as hard as he did. After they stretched, Tsukumo told them to try climbing trees. Kakashi had no problem, and kept going at it to improve his reserves. Naruto, however, took more time to adjust. By nearly an hour, she had mastered it, while Kakashi was lagging behind, tired. Kakashi glared at the determined blonde. She said that she had large chakra levels, but just how much? Not only that, but her stamina was just as impressive. Kakashi pounded his feet harder into the bark, charged by his frustration. Naruto turned, surprised at the sudden harsh sounds coming from her reluctant partner. He was definitely smirking under his mask at her. Her brows slanted downwards along with the corners of her lips as she came to a stop, before jumping and twirling down on the ground gracefully. A triumphant smirk of her own settled on her face as Kakashi's feet reached the grass. A silent challenge sparked between them, and Tsukumo couldn't help but sigh at their antics. Another hour into their training and the two children were huffing harshly against their trees, though Naruto was doing better. She smiled to herself. Her chakra control had improved greatly from Tsukumo's guidance, and her hate of losing to the man's son. Using her shirt, Naruto wiped her face and turned to Kakashi, who noticed. He glared. What? Nothing, she grinned, just grateful for you being here. The boy raised a brow at her, before scoffing. You're weird, I'm just honest. That's what makes you weird. Really? Is she an idiot? He grumbled under his breath, knowing she couldn't hear. What's wrong with you? The smile on her face faltered before she walked over to him. Her face emitted dark waves with an obvious twitch on the left corner of her lips, and Kakashi knew that her short patience was gone. She crouched and jabbed a finger to his chest. What's wrong with you? He swatted her hand away like a fly, a scowl evident even without his mask on. Tsukumo watched the two of them, shaking his head. You too. Kakashi's glare on Naruto intensified then. If his father didn't have to take care of this girl's training, this wouldn't have happened. You're so annoying, and you're such a prick. Tsukumo clapped once loudly, putting a stop to their verbal fight before it evolved to something worse. Since you've completed this drill, I guess we should move on to the next one. He took them away and Naruto grinned, nostalgia bubbling inside her. They were going to the baths. She froze. Wait, baths? Baths equal tons of boiling hot water. Oh shoot. Edisu's strict training session ghosted into her mind. Father, why are we here? Kakashi snapped her back to reality, and she took pity on the boy's obliviousness to the danger they were about to face. Naruto puffed her cheeks, zoning out of Tsukumo's instructions on how to walk on water. Luckily she hadn't used many clones, so she would have plenty of chakra to use. When Tsukumo allowed them to start on the secluded bath, Naruto tied up her shirt just below her, unfortunately flat, she thought miserably, chest, snapped off her weapon holster and pouch, and took off her sandals. She noticed that Kakashi wasn't doing the same. You'll catch a cold, you know. He ignored her, and promptly fell into the scalding hot water. Naruto frowned. It would be easier if I got rid of some chakra first. She had planned on saving it, but that would be wasted on failing, and if she used her clones they would remember how much chakra she should put in. She shifted her hands into her favorite seal, and added more chakra than necessary. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 6 clones popped into existence, and all the Narutos tentatively dipped their foot in the water. They applied chakra, testing what was too much or too little, and after maintaining a constant flow, they tried the other foot. For a minute it worked, before one clone lost concentration and fell in the water. One by one they were distracted by the others and couldn't maintain a perfect rhythm of chakra to their feet. Kakashi watched with twitching eyes at their stupidity. Tsukumo ruffled the blonde's bangs proudly. That was really fast, Naruto. I didn't expect you to almost get it on the first try. Oh, it was pure luck since I already knew what it should feel like and didn't rush in this time. She laughed awkwardly. A shudder ran up her spine. Is it just me or is there, she gulped, killer intent? She robotically peered back, and shot back to the waters. She can bet with her life that she saw evil chuckling ghosts swarming around the boy. Jaya. She quickly applied chakra to her hands to stop herself from falling. They sank down before she bobbed back up. That was great, Naruto. Tsukumo announced, thoroughly impressed. I'm surprised you caught on so fast. Well, you too, I'll be going to get some towels and clothes, so make sure you keep training. Okay, Naruto said, while Kakashi grunted. When the man was clearly out of earshot, she snapped at him. For the love of God, what's your problem? He glared hard. You're my problem. Having said that, he promptly stomped off into the hot bath. Naruto stared after him, frozen in her spot. Ouch. Her sensei wouldn't say such cruel things, she reminded herself, but her face still twisted in pain as she gazed downcast. Kakashi and Kakashi-sensei are different. She shook her head, pasted a smile on her face, and went to practice her drills as well. Tsukumo sighed from behind the wall he hid when he finally looked away from the two children, shaking his head as well. Keeping his hands in his pockets, he flickered and disappeared. Young Naruto is extraordinary, Hokage-sama. Tsukumo said, beamed. When you told me that she might be behind, I had thought that you meant she didn't understand chakra control at all. Ah, no, I never meant that. Hiruzen laughed as he watched the lights of stalls flicking on from his wide windows. She just seemed to have some problems with it. Well, she wrapped it up pretty quickly, the silver-haired man pondered, leaning back on the wall. Made me quite surprised, actually. That girl, she never fails to surprise anyone, I can tell. Tsukumo hummed again, she interests me. Not only because of her skills, too. Oh, she looks so much like Minato and Kushina-san. I wanted to know if she does look alike to that couple, but she's not their daughter. Yet. I doubt only that's the other reason. Is it because of your son, Kakashi? Yes, he said, smiling. Their conversation easily turned. It's the first time I've seen him express so much emotion ever since. Hiruzen softly spoke. She was young and beautiful. I almost thought of her as a daughter. I'm sure she's watching over us as well as her best friends. Yes, they were quite the trio despite the difference in their age. Her, Kushina, and Mikoto, that is. Tsukumo smiled, before glancing at the clock. I just remembered. I promised Kakashi that I'd practice mind games with him. All right, the Hokage said, before stopping the younger man with one question. Tsukumo, what do you think of Naruto? The man blinked as he turned his head back, before a stronger smile appeared on his lips. In some aspects, she's just like her. I see. Minato looked up from his scroll at the ring of the doorbell. Oh, she's back. Kushina put down her ladle and followed him to open the door. Welcome home, Naruto. Naruto blinked, before she matched their grins. Tadaima. I was just finishing up dinner, so, oh, did you take a shower outside? The woman pointed out her damp hair that wasn't in their usual pigtails while Minato went back to prepare the table. Yeah, my sensei is Hataki Tsukumo, and he trained me and his son and I Naruto. Yup, his son and I with chakra control. One of the drills was water surface walking, and we went to the baths for that. Kushina smiled. Was it fun? Yup. Really, really fun, though Kakashi was annoying me. Annoying you? That nice kid? She bit her cheek to keep from laughing at the young girl's adorableness. Well, let's talk it over dinner, shall we? They had Naruto's favorite, miso ramen, with lots of pork. You're awesome, Ka-chan. I know I am. Kushina grinned at the compliment, and what she had been called. I'm the best ramen maker in this town. That's only because you don't even know half the village's cooking, and because there hasn't been a ramen shop for years. Minato said pointedly as he split his chopsticks. Hey! Naruto, you agree with me, don't you? Yeah? Kushina huffed. Your tone sure boosts my confidence. I swear, all blondes have something against me. Naruto stuffed herself with the noodles, trying to survive from choking as she laughed at her parents' playful banter. Gulping the food down, she grinned. Ka-chan, I doubt she meant anything behind that. Oh really? So it's perfectly normal for her to throw a flower pot at me? The redhead scoffed. She hates me, and wanted me to know that with her sickly sweet smile. She's suffocating me with all that I poison. Now, Kushina. Minato tried, failing pitifully. He then turned to the girl sitting next to her, in an attempt to change the topic. Naruto, I've noticed this before, but your vocabulary's pretty impressive. Kushina put away her ill temper and clasped her hands together. I agree. She rather forcefully slammed the blonde to her chest, on the verge of vigorous crying. Oh, Naruto, I'm so proud of you. You weren't the one who taught her, that's for sure. Hey! What's that supposed to mean, eh? Naruto took a moment to respond. I was taught by the teacher I told you about, Tuchan. He's, really good at pretty much everything. She smiled, but couldn't let go of the bad taste left in her mouth, and it definitely wasn't because of Kushina's brilliant cooking. Oh, I heard about him from Minato. He seems pretty awesome, eh? Snagged yourself a great teach. Kushina elbowed her, before taking a slice of pork into her mouth. He is good. Wonder what village he was from. Naruto feigned confusion. He never really did tell me anything about him, but he was really nice and caring. All of her mentors were, and Kakashi-sensei never really did reveal much about himself for the first few years of them knowing each other. Kushina grinned. He's good with manners too, eh? She pointedly looked at the proper way Naruto ate, elbows off the table, waiting until she had nothing in her mouth before she talked. Even knows the proper way to eat ramen, I see. Chow and slurp. Minato brought a hand over his eyes and Naruto grinned. Yup, my mentor was picky with how he ate. Sakura had all but beaten the manners into her brain. The only thing she failed to knock out of her was her style of eating the best food in the world. So? Kushina stared, a smile on her face that seemed, from Naruto's perspective, knowing and mischievous. What's this I hear about your new partner? Hatake Kakashi, was it? The girl puffed her cheeks, and looked the other way as she said in annoyance, oh yeah. He's so mean. Her mouth curved down further in distaste. He thinks I'm stupid and brainless, so he pushes me into 60 degrees water. Minato raised a brow disapprovingly. What he did isn't quite sensible. Kushina's grin kept its sly curl. I think it's quite cute. You know what they say about young boys and their behaviors towards the girls. Naruto's sweat dropped, and Minato rolled his eyes. Boys tease the girls they like? Isn't that a bit too early for him? I mean, he's 4 years old, the same age as Naruto, he reasoned. Ah, she inwardly sighed exasperatedly. Kiba had once said something about that when he noticed Sasuke's attitude with me, she grumbled. Though I'm pretty sure it was because the bastard hated me to guts that time. If anything, it seems to me that he just dislikes her with a very strong passion. Nicely put, Dad. A much better way of saying that he, like his future favorite student, hates me. Isn't that a bit too fast? He barely even knows her except for her talents, and maybe her weak points. Nothing about personality or lifestyle. That's enough reason to, Kushina. Minato withheld a smile. Didn't you hate me the first day you got into the academy? Seeing me as someone who's, what was it? Flaky and weak? The woman huffed, realizing the argument was settled, with her boyfriend being the winner again. Naruto grinned and asked, although she already knew the answer, do you guys always have small quarrels like this? Quarrels? Kushina frowned and thought, I don't think I knew the word until I was at least 10 years old. You never really cared much about the textbooks and writing much unless it had something to do with seals, after all. Minato laughed. Actually, you never really cared for your studies until you turned genin. That's cause Konoha's a little late in teaching stuff. I mean, the academy teaches basic ninjutsu, writing skills that we don't need to even memorize half of, math, textbook-style taijutsu, which sucks, only. She ranted heatedly, caught up in her frustration. Kids need more action. Naruto firmly clamped her mouth shut, but the shy thoughts didn't stop popping up in her brain. I couldn't even get any of the stuff they taught us until I failed on my first exam anyways. How was Tsukumo-san? Minato asked, preventing the fiery woman from continuing her tirade. I'm pretty sure he's a good sensei. Not only is he talented in all arts, he's exceptionally good in teaching. Yup. The girl squeaked, more than glad that the subject shifted. He points out the stuff I'm weak at, and helps me with it. Sometimes, though, he lets me solve it on my own. That way I'll be able to remember better of what's bad or good to do and stuff. Now that she thought about it, the man seems similar to Jiraiya in terms of teaching. Nothing related to his research, of course. But he occasionally did shove her into a bar or two a few times. Minato must have thought along the same lines, as he mumbled, kind of reminds me of a serious Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto blinked, remembering what her father had said before. Hey, Tu-chan, she started slowly, curiosity on her features. Do you know him personally, Tsukumo-san? Ah, yeah? He's my senpai, and taught me quite a lot of tips during missions. Kushina's smile, Naruto noticed, was turning strained the more they talked about the man. Ka-chan? She turned to her hesitantly with blue eyes of worry. Are you okay? Oh yes, Naruto. What makes you ask? The smile turned firmer now as the woman ruffled her hair affectionately. Well, we have some bowls to wash, so will you help me? The whiskered blonde kept her gaze on her mother for a moment longer, before letting go. Kushina was just as, if not more, stubborn as she was. Hi. She saluted, and stood to collect the red ramen bowls with her as Minato went to study some scrolls. From her messy bangs, Naruto still watched the red-haired woman walk to the kitchen, worry still evident. Naruto coughed out the dust and tears prickled her eyes as she adjusted her knees to the dirty floor. Really, Hokage-sama, why of all places did you keep the Uzumaki clan scrolls here? Here, as in the hidden, underground chamber. The Hokage fully trusted her, now that the paternity test was over. It doesn't look like it has been cleaned for over a decade. Well, I can't allow anyone other than myself or Kushina to enter. We can't come here so often since someone might see us, and she doesn't really like to come down here. Oh. Why? I'm thinking it is because it's hard for her. Naruto didn't speak, she couldn't. What can she say? Her mother, unlike her, knew of her village and clan, which were both destroyed by enemies because of their power. She continued carefully searching through the old scrolls and paper seals, but focused on the former. While seeing the actual seal can allow you to find out new techniques to a few ninjutsu, it was quicker to find the scroll holding the secrets and effects to it. This was taking forever. Hokage-sama? She kept her eyes on the dust-layered papers in front of her. I think it's best to tell you what happened in my future now. Not only is this room soundproof, we're several meters underground. Hearing his nod from the rustle of his scarf, she began from the moment she was born, but kept everything brief, only mentioning the important bits and pieces. However, she noticed that almost everything that came out of her mouth revolved around Sasuke, and knew that the elder realized as well. I went with Killer Bee, and trained to control the fox. I managed to mold Kyuubi's chakra, but while I use it, he'll take mine as well. So if I use too much of his chakra, I'll die easily. Anyways, after that, I found out about the war and went to the battlefield. She blew away a thick layer of dust and brought her jacket to her mouth and nose, muffling her voice. I went to help the medic squad, but there I met the whirlpool kunoichi. She tried to make me shrink, but at the same time I used the Hiruzen. I panicked. So the two Fuinjutsus somehow mixed and wound me up here. I see no wonder Orochimaru's been so different lately. I've had my suspicions, but to think that he would go that far. Naruto was glad she didn't look at the Hokage. She could hear enough despair in his voice. Well, that's something I'll have to take care of. I can't let any other innocent people be used as guinea pigs for my student. I think it would be best to call Jiraiya-sensei as well. No, Naruto. He's very much like you. It would be hard for him to cope, which would make it hard for me to stop Orochimaru. It's very similar. Your bonds with Sasuke and Jiraiya's with Orochimaru are very alike. She tried to lighten the atmosphere. The room was already suffocating enough as it is. Well, Jiraiya-sensei better be glad that I think of Sasuke as a brother. You're right about that. The mental image of Jiraiya and Orochimaru being together was probably too much for the man to bear. He coughed into his hand, and Naruto noticed the slight urgency of how he tried to change the topic. Well, have you found something? Yeah, while we were talking about Hokage-sama's two male students' questionable relationship, I thought this might be it. She lifted a scroll, having already dusted it off. Black whirlpools decorating the sea of faded green. A light frown marred her face. If I remember correctly, Ino had once said that green flowers symbolize youth. Her lips curled down further, and black usually is a bad color, isn't it? She forced herself to calm down, and unraveled the old scroll. Tried to. She noticed the small, broken circle at both corners of the opening, along with the kanji for blood. To keep it this guarded, she caught the Hokage's attention, and let him peer over her shoulder as she bit her thumb. Blood seeped out, and a small drop landed on one of the miniature seals. The circle's missing parts appeared to form an Uzumaki swirl, which was pulled into the crimson liquid. Experimentally, Naruto peeled the edge. I see, so it requires the blood of an Uzumaki to unlock it. She frowned, studying the other circle. But it looks much simpler than the ones I've seen before. Finding that it worked, she smudged her blood on the second and unbounded the scroll with care. Who knew how old this thing was? As expected of the Uzumaki clan, Hiruzen said, standing back up the same time she did. However, they wouldn't add such security onto them, thinking that they would have been able to secure these themselves. So why? I was thinking the same thing, unless this one is very dangerous. Naruto clenched at the cloth covering her stomach. Her cut had quickly healed. She looked at the long, thin paper in her hands. This is it. The one jutsu we've been looking over half a day for. It was all there, the instructions on how to make the seal. However, reading further into it, she noticed something terribly wrong. What? Hiruzen's brows furrowed in worry at her horror-stricken face. Naruto? What's wrong? It's not how to stop it, isn't on. Her breathing quickened, and she combed a hand through her spiky bangs. There are only the steps on how to activate. It doesn't say how to stop the user's chakra. Calm down, Naruto. The Sarutobi ran his hand up and down her back gently. Even if it doesn't have how to do it, you should be able to find out on your own, can't you? Why, you're right, she hugged herself as she let out a shaky breath. But that would take too much time? The Hokage pressed his hand to his mouth, thinking for a moment. We have no choice but to get Kushina's help for this. While I do have experience with seals, she has much more knowledge of it, especially the ones of Uzushiobikure's. She might even start being able to enter here on her own will. Are you fine with this? I thought it best for only you and me to know of my situation. I can't do much for you, Naruto, and you can't do this on your own. On my own? She frowned. But it would be risky for anyone else to know. The Hokage's eyes grew sharper. You can't shoulder everything on your own. Eventually you'll turn out to be the very person you hate, Madara. As I said before, you can't forget that you have possible strong allies around you. You'll become as egotistical as Uchiha Madara. You should find comrades you can trust. The Sandaime smiled pleasantly. You said that you wanted to become Hokage ever since you were a child? Naruto nodded, wide-eyed. I still do. Well, you should remember that my predecessors, and in the future your father, earned the title of Hokage because of those around us. If you have the same ambition as your parents, you will need support from friends to accomplish it. She bit her bottom lip, squeezing the green scroll until her knuckles turned white. I understand, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen ruffled her bangs, causing her to pout. Why does everyone do that? You're adorable. I have yet to fully register that you're actually 16. I'm just glad that Kiba, he's one of my childhood, annoying but fun friend, ain't here to see me. He'll surely say something cruel like that Kunoichi had returned you back to your real age. She imitated him by deepening her voice. She laughed, but suddenly it didn't feel so as he'll totally say. The Hokage figured out right away. Don't worry, Naruto, you'll find your way back. I've been thinking. She looked down and widened her eyes in an effort to hide her effort to hold back tears. I'm turning into a crybaby now, aren't I? What if I shouldn't go back? What do you mean? What if I should stay here to make everything better? For them? As the village leader, I would say it is best that you do. The aging man sighed. But, as a fellow human being, I would say that it is up to you. You have done more than enough good for them, and the war can still come out to be in the shinobi world's favor with your help. The world would be more peaceful if I stayed, but I might lose the chance to unite the 5 great nations because of the changes I make. I'll never get to be with my friends the same way I have been before, and even though they're there, my parents wouldn't know that I'm their daughter. She laughed emptily. Even though I'm going to suffer a lot, there will always be someone worse off than me. I am but one person. My decision can either bring happiness to millions of people or take it away. Which will it be? He asked solemnly, despite knowing her answer. A plastic smile was already pasted on her face. I'll stay. The Hokage sighed heavily, as if he had just added a boulder to his shoulders, and readjusted his scarf. I see. Thank you, Naruto. They had bumped into each other once in a small town on a winter night. She had been on a solo mission to find a criminal, while he had been sent to assassinate a man who attempted to defy Snake. The blonde wore a cape that hid her from head to toe, as did he, but they could tell. The streets were empty. Now was the perfect time for her to capture him and get him back. Back to where he belonged. Even as she had those thoughts, she froze the moment their shoulders touched. After a few steps, made in what felt like an eternity, he stopped as well. Her eyes were wide, as the whisper of his name fumbled out of her lips. He didn't move. Hesitance bubbled up restlessly within her. What if she was wrong? Would she be able to bear the disappointment? Can she keep herself from crumbling along with her hope? His deep yet emotionless voice calling her name grasped her back to where she stood, feet planted against the rough cement. She whirled around, not paying heed to her hair brushing over her wide and suddenly moist eyes. Her lips parted, a gasp escaping when she realized he was in front of her, red orbs glowing in the shadows of his coat. His arms reached the edge of her cloth, bringing it down to reveal her long, golden hair, and brightening her sapphire eyes with the moonlight. He, almost fondly, used his thumbs to dry her cheeks as she took off the head of his coat. His skin, as pale as the moon, shone as the crimson seeped into obsidian. Her fingers kept their clutch on the dark cloth. He slowly drew his hands away, letting the tears flow freely down her whiskered cheeks, and gently wrapped her much smaller ones. His jaw clenched and brows knitted together in regret, the first time in 3 years she saw emotion on his porcelain face. A tortured and strained plea escaped his mouth. Give up on me. He disappeared, and she went back to her home, keeping their meeting to herself. What he said hadn't discouraged her, it did the opposite. His words encouraged her, a powerful hope and relieved happiness that would free her of her chains. He can still be reached. That encounter was the last touch they felt from each other. Naruto slowly opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling, briefly touching one of her cheeks. Tears settled at the corner of her eyes, and trickled down to her pillow. I wonder, she brought her hands up to wipe them, will the chance given by my enemy really free you and the rest of us from pain? A smile touched her lips. Even if it costs me my own happiness, the sweet memories we shared. She sat up and made her bed. I'll save you and our precious friends. The door silently closed. That dream was just what I needed, Sasuke. Where were you, Naruto? You do know that you attend the academy starting from today, right? Kushina frowned as she flipped a pancake into said girl's plate. You should know that it's bad for young children like you to go around the streets at night. I wasn't at the streets, and I only went out a few hours ago. I was practicing taijutsu while using chakra to stay on the walls of this apartment. The blonde grinned. I had a dream so I couldn't go back to sleep. The woman ruffled her hair. A nightmare? Nope, a good dream. Oh well, Kushina blinked and smiled. I see. What was it about, my best friend? Alright, since you're in such a great mood, why don't you wake Dad up? Naruto beamed. Hi, Kaa-chan. The woman gave a fond sigh, and took off her apron with a smile. I wonder how she'll react. Her eyes drifted to the documents on the counter, before snapping back to the blonde duo, one rubbing his eyes sleepily as the other helped him reach to the table. Perhaps it was more accurate to say that the girl was dragging the man. Kushina deadpanned, "You're pathetic," to him, crouching down to make sure he heard her. She scowled, setting her palms on her hips. Now be a man and help me get that plate down. We have something to discuss, remember? Minato sighed. Yeah? As if he had a heavy boulder on his back, he pulled himself up with Naruto's petite shoulder, ignoring the rather intense glare directed on him. Honestly, what's gotten you so weak in the morning? Mission. Minato gave an apologetic smile to the blonde, before taking out the plate from the high shelf. Those pancakes smell really good. Of course, since I made them. Kushina boasted unabashedly, and the three settled in their seats to eat their breakfast. The mealtime consisted of the usual, trivial yet fun talk, but Naruto noticed something different. The best way she could explain the difference was that it was warmer. More, she sought for a better word while furrowing her brows, meaningful. Naruto, Minato began with a bright smile, different compared to his previous, lazy and tired expression. Yes, Kushina and I have been wanting to show you something. Naruto then noticed the folder in her mother's hand. Kushina smiled from ear to ear as she passed it to her. Naruto clenched the folder, finally realizing what the documents were after taking a look at the sheets. This is adoption form. Kushina ended for her, withholding her excitement as she watched her reaction. So how about it? We can still take it back if this is too much for you, Naruto. Minato crouched to be at eye level with the girl, tenderly holding her arms. We've thought about this carefully for a while, and we're listed as your guardians in the academy registration as well. It has only been 2 weeks, but we felt that this was right. He petted Naruto's head, looking up at Kushina who had brought her arms on his shoulders. I'm sorry it's so soon, and that I can't explain how Kushina and I feel about you better. I want you to understand that you are like a daughter to us now. This isn't a dream, right? She tightened her grip on the bunched papers, tears overflowing down her cheeks as she tried to keep herself from sobbing in joy. Naruto glomped her father, while knowing that her words of gratitude were incoherent but continuing to let them run out of her mouth anyway. Kushina smiled, before clapping her hands together. All right, Naruto. We can't have you going to the academy with your eyes so red and puffy. She hurriedly went into the kitchen. I'll prepare some hot and cold towels, so you better change. Minato ended up piggybacking the girl back into her room. Naruto waved goodbye to her parents, feeling nervous all of a sudden. The Hokage had warned her that the classes would be more uptight than the ones from her childhood days, seeing as it was the harsh times of war, the biggest one, in fact. She shook her head. She was fine enough, wasn't she? Her chakra control was just barely chunin level thanks to her hard work on long hours. She had practiced her taijutsu earlier in the morning, so she shouldn't have a problem with the difference in her height or her limbs. Naruto was fully prepared. Have you studied? She snapped behind her to see young and small. She was sure she was a little taller. Kakashi in his usual dark navy blue, mask-attached no sleeves and pants. Wait, study? You haven't heard? Naruto knew he was smirking. His smug tone said it all. Heard what? We have a written test today. Our teacher doesn't care about latecomers either. Well, she wasn't prepared for that. I'm not sure if people know what a melon pen is, but it can also be known as melon buns or melon bread, our sweet bakery products from Japan, from Wikipedia. They don't taste like melons, though recently companies have started adding the flavor to them, but they look like one, thus the name. When you look at it from the top, it kinda looks like this. Hashtag, I used to eat it almost every week when I was a kid, laughing face. It's gonna be mentioned once, and it's not important in this chapter, but I didn't want to confuse anyone, so yeah. Also, in Japan, test, homework, etc. answers are marked with circles when right or ticks when wrong. And senpai means senior, not as an old senior but as like a person who's older and you look up to usually in school. The opposite is kohai, which is junior. And finally, this is rather important out of the vocab list here. Kamaboko in English is fish cake. Naruto, the food, is an artistic version of it. I'm using it cause when it sounds kinda funny, I'm not a normal Japanese, sorry. And I think most of you know, but Kakashi means scarecrow. It was used as a joke. I laughed so much anything can make me laugh when Naruto tried to explain about his teachers to Amaru in the second Naruto Shippuden movie. Dialogue, since I haven't posted this up before. Normal talking, whispering, loudly/harshly talking, thinking. Most of you have probably found out, but we'll be having a new student from now on. She's the same age as Kakashi, and I expect you all to treat her well. The class simply chorused in unison, "Hi, sensei," before promptly going back into their own excited conversation with their friends. New students were rather rare seeing as it is the time of war. No parent want their child to run into the battlefield and return dead with their dog tags. Not only that, but foreigners of all ages weren't really welcomed, and would be closely watched. Was it a girl or a boy, and the same age as Kakashi, was what their thoughts consisted of. The students immediately stopped chattering at the distinct knock of the door. Kakashi found it unnecessary to hit his knuckles on the wood more than once. They watched on, some even gulping as the tension became thick in the air with anticipation. They faltered in their seats and bumped their chin to the table when Kakashi entered first. "Sensei, I brought her in. It's a girl." The students sighed in relief. They wouldn't be able to stand another Kakashi. The boys sat back in surprise as the girls squealed in joy at the young, 4-year-old blonde. "I'm Namikaze Naruto." Naruto grinned brightly. "Nice to meet ya." The students cheerfully greeted back, before they eagerly raised their hands. The male teacher sighed as the boys shouted their questions impatiently. "One at a time. And Kippei, raise your hand. Naruto-chan, where are you from? What's it like traveling around while there's danger everywhere?" The chunin grumbled at being ignored, before gazing down at the newly youngest girl of the class. "Well, Naruto, you'll be sitting next to Kakashi at the back by the window. Kakashi, be sure to help her with anything she'll need, alright?" "Hi, sensei." The boy replied obediently, much to Naruto's surprise. Kakashi didn't bother giving her a glance. Come on. They were seated at the very back corner next to the windows, and when Naruto received her schedule, she shot a nasty glare at her training partner. The writing test wasn't until the last period. She had plenty of time to study during the class breaks and lunch. Naruto read what the test was going to cover, and sighed in relief. Half of them were what Sakura had shoved into her brains. The other half she wasn't so sure, but Kakashi-sensei had brushed up on it with a little revision. It wouldn't be a problem. The first class had brushed up on team formation, seeing as the graduation exams were coming up. Then it shifted to survival tactics. Naruto yawned, bored. She knew all of that already. As the teacher's words flew over her head, she stared at the Hokage monument, or more precisely, the vacant spot for the 4th edition. Sighing, she pretended to take notes onto her book. Eventually, her scribbles turned into doodles. Her drawings evolved into a story. A snake had stolen a baby hawk from its nest and fattened it up for himself to eat. Deeming the now-grown bird good enough, he tried to devour it. However, the bird had not only gotten big, but dangerous as well. The hawk had easily turned the tables and ate the predator-turned-prey. What the heck is that? Naruto jumped and turned to see Kakashi staring at her notebook, an eye twitching. Self-conscious, she drew it closer and casually draped an arm over the desk so it would block the book from his sight. What is what? She whispered back, feigning confusion. Your drawings are pathetic. Why are you drawing sticks and stones anyway? They're not. She looked down before scowling at him. What's wrong with drawing sticks and stones? He eyed her suspiciously, before focusing back on his notes. I thought you were actually writing, but looks like I'm wrong. Well, I already know all that. There's no point in using effort to try and remember stuff I already understand. Kakashi seemed taken aback for a moment, before scoffing and ignoring her. The nerve, she glared, and stomped his foot. Ow! The class and teacher jumped in surprise, and widened their eyes when they realized that it was Kakashi who suddenly jumped up and shouted. Kakashi? Are you alright? The Chunin asked worriedly, ignoring the snickering male students. Naruto smirked in satisfaction at the small blush peeking out of the boy's face as he shook his head. And no, I'm fine, sensei. I'm sorry for the interruption, he said, before sitting back down quietly. Well, if you say so. Kakashi's pencil scratched harshly against the thin lined paper of his notebook. Naruto watched, highly amused, before she blinked when he all but shoved his book to her. I'm going to kill you. Toasted, fried, or boiled? A smile was on her lips despite the content of the message, and Naruto wrote back. Is that so? And hey, you have a sense of dark humor. I'm surprised. She paused, before adding a little cute heart. She knew it served its purpose when Kakashi's knuckles turned white. Oh, he was so fun to annoy. She slowly passed his book to him, fully expecting him to snatch it. And snatch he did. Too bad he didn't notice that the page he pulled on was slightly torn. The paper ripped loud and clear, and Kakashi caught the class' attention yet again. The book had already been thrown in front of him before they looked back, so it seemed as if Kakashi had simply torn a page from his book in rage. Though that was true, it wasn't all of what had happened. One student from the front, Naruto recognized as Kippei from earlier in the morning, piped up. Anger issues much, Hataki? The class erupted in laughter, but Naruto couldn't find what was so funny, even if she tried to see from another classmate's point of view. She turned to see Kakashi's reaction, but his hair had shielded his eyes, and though she couldn't see them, she knew he was hurt. She bit her lower lip and clenched her shorts in guilt. Naruto looked around, and noticed that 2 girls, one definitely a Hyuga, and a boy wasn't laughing. In fact, they seemed to think the same as her. What was so hilarious that the class had a kick about was something they couldn't get. The teacher's efforts in calming the class weren't helping at all. Naruto growled, before abruptly standing up. She slammed her tiny fists on the desk, and caught the class' attention immediately, snapping them out of their laughter and giggling. What's so funny? She gritted her teeth when Kippei merely raised a brow. I was the one who stole his book out of boredom. Shouldn't I be the one you're laughing at? What the we're just having fun, Kippei grumbled, backed up by his friend's agreement. The girls seemed to have finally gotten out of their amusement. Kakashi was only 4, even if he was very talented. Maybe they went too far? I don't see how this is fun. Naruto frowned. Are you really older than me? Because even in my eyes this isn't the slightest bit funny. Kakashi looked up at her in surprise, but she paid him no heed. Instead, she looked down at the boy she noticed earlier as he spoke. I agree. It's immature, he said monotonously, and even from first glance she knew he wasn't much of a talker. She blinked in surprise before she sat back down. Sensei, Naruto called, and she might as well put her feet on the table. Can we start class now? I don't think my parents would like it very much if we waste time like this. All right. Well, class, get your textbooks out and turn to page 34. The blonde sighed, before resuming back to staring out the window. Naruto sighed, eating her melon pen peacefully as she stared out the window. Earlier, when their morning break had just begun, she had been bombarded by her new classmates. She even remembered what they said. It had been that loud and squealish. How do you get your hair like that? It's spiky at the front, but like so silky at the back. Did you meet any awesome ninjas outside of Konoha? What are they like? The girls had been cooing about how cute and adorable she is, unlike a certain someone, and that she should let them totally give her a totally lovely makeover, while the boys had been pressuring her with questions of what it's like going around the world and such. You're interesting. Naruto looked up from her snack at the boy's voice and lifted her head from her palm. She looked up to see 3 kids, the ones who didn't laugh. She glanced at the clock. It was break time already. She then set her eyes on the boy again, taking in his appearance. He had choppy, short brown hair and black, lazy eyes, and fairly light skin. He wore a green, hooded short-sleeved jacket and black shorts. Her gaze shifted to the other 2 girls. The Hyuga was from the main branch, judging by her clear forehead, and her eyes contained a lavender tint much like Hinata's, Naruto noted thoughtfully, and had jet black, silky hair reaching her mid-back with a fringe. Her pale skin contrasted sharply with her black shirt and navy blue, knee-length shorts. The other seemed to be from a civilian family, and had short, almost orange hair. Her amber eyes were bright and friendly, but held some depth to them. She wore a light blue, hooded, unzipped jacket, and under it a soft pink with white shorts. Smiling, Naruto asked, "How so?" Earlier, when you stood up for him, he pointedly stared at Kakashi, who ignored them and slept. The orange-haired girl grinned. "Hello, Naruto-chan. I'm Mika. He's Genma, and she's Shizuka. Shizuka and I are 7, and Genma's 6. Shizuka nodded once in a greeting. "You have an interesting name, too. I'm named after a book's hero." She grinned, Tale of a Gutsy Ninja. Her eyes stayed on Genma for a moment, before realizing that he's Shirani Genma, the last proctor for the final round of her first Chunin exam. His hairstyle, which looked pretty cool, she had to admit was completely different from his future one. "I've never heard of it, but I'll be sure to look around." "Who's the author?" "Jiraiya. The book's a little hard to read, though. I had my old teacher simplify the whole book for me." Mika giggled, draping an arm around the other girl. "Shizuka's a major bookworm, so she'll probably be able to read it," she joked, before pouting. "She even ditched me for books once. I honestly don't see what she sees in those things. Obviously, manga's a whole lot better to read." Genma rolled his eyes as Shizuka elbowed the now laughing girl. Naruto watched the three, feeling something familiar from them. "It reminds me of," she blinked before smiling, feeling utterly nostalgic, "the time with Sasuke and Sakura." Mika reminded her of herself, Shizuka as Sakura, Genma as Sasuke. I'll get homesick if I keep this train of thought going. Say, are you three best friends, HM? Mika blinked, lowering her arms from their guarded position in front of her face. "Yeah, we're childhood friends. Though, Shizuka and Genma were friends since forever, I think. Their mothers are best friends." "Really? Cool." Kakashi got up from his seat, making it screech loudly against the floor. Naruto looked up. "Kakashi? I can't sleep with you guys around," he said without looking back at her, and walked down the room. When the door shut behind him, the students grumbled irritably. "What's with him? God, can't he get up and leave without making a sound? Such a brat." Naruto frowned, before forcing a small laugh as she turned back to the three. "I'll go look for him. Sorry about that." She got up and rushed out, leaving her bread behind. Genma raised a brow. "What's she apologizing about?" Mika pouted. "I wanted to talk to her more." "And what's with that? It's not even her fault, but she's saying sorry for Kakashi. Maybe they're close?" Shizuka suggested, before going back to her desk. Mika looked back once more at the door, her face perplexed, and followed the other girl. Genma hummed, before staring down at Naruto's notebook. "Why sticks and stones?" Naruto had looked all over the building for him, until she saw the boy outside from the window, casually sitting against a tree and eating an apple. He was facing downwards though, reading a book, so she couldn't see the lower half of his face. Scowling, she got out and ran to him, her lips curling further downwards when he quickly put up his mask. Naruto plopped down next to him, a little too close for his comfort, seeing as he was trying to push her off. "Go away. You know, the word antisocial should have a limit. Especially for 4-year-olds like us," she commented, before turning to face him. "And it's much too early to form a wrinkle over here." She jabbed the crease between his frowning brows. He turned his head away from her, clearly irritated. "You're annoying, and you're pessimistic." Kakashi blinked, before stubbornly scowling. "Whatever. I meant that you're really negative." "I knew that," he said a little too quickly. Naruto laughed before ruffling his hair playfully. He shook his head and tried to slap her hand away. "I'm older than you, you know." Naruto huffed. "Yeah, by a month and 5 days, right? My birthday's on the 10th of October, by the way." He raised a brow at her, and she shrugged. "Someone told me that yours is on the 15th of September, and I remember birthdays pretty well." Her lips curled into a smirk, eyes challenging him at her last statement, and Kakashi took the bait. "You said it was the 10th of October, didn't you?" "Yes, I did." He got up, and shoved his hands in his pockets. "Easy, of course, since it's really just 2 10s. 10-10. She remembered joking about that with the weapon mistress before, not mentioning the other importance of that date, of course. Standing up, she sighed. "Anyways, we have training after school, don't we?" He glanced at her in annoyance, before walking away. "Yeah, taijutsu." Naruto followed, maintaining a short distance between them. Observing the boy quietly, she folded her arms behind her head, a casual habit of hers whenever she walked, carefree. All this boy ever thinks about is training and his father. She hadn't seen him socialize or even talk with the other children. Finally, the blonde asked, "Say, Kakashi, why are you being so cold?" He ignored her, so she tried again. "Why is your attitude so different towards the adults and kids like us? Like the time when our class teacher said I had to sit with you? You hate me, don't you?" He still didn't respond, so she finally reached for his shirt and tugged. Why was he doing this? Isn't he, a 4-year-old, sad? She had cried and cried and cried when she was his age. He stopped, but didn't look back as she inquired further, "Why do you act like this when you know it makes you dislike so much? When you know that just by forcing a smile and being all polite would stop the loneliness?" Naruto bit her lip to stop herself from going too deep into the many emotions inside her. She took a shuddering breath, before finally saying, I don't get it at all. I never asked you to. Stop sticking your nose in other people's business and mind your own. It's bad enough my dad has to train you too when he's busy with missions. He pulled himself away from her shaking hand effortlessly. I don't get you. If you don't like the way I am, just stop acting so familiar with me. Besides, what would you understand about me? What? And I don't get what you're going on and on about. Lonely? I'm not alone. There's people around me, isn't there? Besides, having my father with me is enough. Naruto sighed, restraining from pulling at her ponytails in frustration. Not only at him, but also at herself. Why did she get so emotional? And, of course, he's too young to realize lonely and alone are two different things. With him this mad, I can't get him to help me, can I? Naruto pouted, knowing full well that the bell was signaling the start of lunch break. Well, it won't be that hard. Going outside, she made a beeline for the stone bench she and Sakura had sat on after the team selections with a smile. Sitting down, the blonde quickly stacked her review sheets next to her and unpacked her lunchbox. Whoa, so many side dishes. She chomped on an octopus-shaped sausage blissfully. Savoring the taste, she read the pile of paper thoroughly. She had to understand everything and ace the test. That would give her parents something to be proud of, right? Especially since she had just entered the academy. Wait, so is that how Kakashi felt as well? That he had to act like the perfect child in front of the adults to give his father something to be proud of other than his grades? She chewed thoughtfully on her omelette, before his words struck her mind. Besides, having my father with me is enough. What about his mother? This time, she did pull at her ponytails. Why didn't she notice and ask? Though if she did, he'd probably clam up. The way he said it sounded as if he didn't realize he was telling her at all. Arg, such a complicated 4-year-old brat. Who is? And aren't you a 4-year-old too? Genma's voice caused her to snap her head towards him in alarm. Slip of tongue. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. Hatake Kakashi? Who else? Naruto sighed, before looking up at him hesitantly. Hey, you wouldn't happen to know what happened to Kakashi's mom, would you? Mom? My parents talked about her once, but I think she died a year ago. Oh, she had expected that. But how? I don't know, something to do with an illness. It seemed to have stretched on for a long time. I see. Genma raised a brow. Why the sudden interest? Well, Naruto accidentally looked down at her notes. Before panicking, hands slapped to her mouth. Oh no, I forgot to study. He sighed at her obvious puppy eyes. I got it, I'll help you. She grinned triumphantly, before all but shoving a quarter of the stack to his chest. These are the ones I don't understand, senpai. You do realize that I'm only 2 years older, and in the same class as you, right? Yup, senpai. Just call me Genma. Hi, Genma senpai. Isn't that too long? Senpai's fine. Hi, senpai. You're making me sound old. A smile broke her determined face as she stared down at her paper in pure satisfaction. Naruto read every answer she had written word for word, checking for any flaws, and found none. Standing up, she heard clothes ruffling next to her and saw Kakashi stand up at the same time. I thought I would be first. Had he stayed sitting, she would have been the first to finish the test out of the whole class. He glared. She glared back. A challenge sparked between them, and they were zipping down to the teacher's desk before they knew it. Naruto tried to shove him off as he did the same, grinding their shoulders together as a result. Test papers crumpled and clutched in their fists. They were close to the goal, and charged even faster, not paying any heed to the teacher's very amused face. Slamming their papers down onto the desk, Naruto noticed that Kakashi's paper had slipped under hers. Defeated, she all but dragged her feet up to get back to her desk. Slumping back in her chair, she glared harshly at him as he had his hands in his pockets, and sat down. Sighing, she drew a scarecrow on her desk, not caring if it would get her in trouble, and below it drew fire. She filled the scarecrow black from bottom to top, and erased the fire gleefully. I should get a voodoo doll. I never knew I had such a sadistic side. Bored, she glanced up at the clock. 5 more minutes, ugh. She had been glad to get the seat next to the window originally, but now it felt like a curse. The only person she can talk to is Kakashi, and he wishes to have nothing to do with her. The person in front of her was too far, and the teacher will notice. She peeked at Kakashi's direction, and noticed that he was boredly watching the clock. Well, it's worth a shot, but what should she talk about? She didn't know why she even bothered to think on it. Of course it's training. An idea popped up in her head, and she grinned. Hey, Kakashi? He ignored her, but she already expected him to. You know, we've only run around and tried jumping a few times on water, right? How about a spar? That caught his attention. He turned his head, brows furrowed in confusion. What? I said we've only. I heard that. I meant, he took a deep breath as an attempt to suppress his irritation. That's way too hard for someone like you. Oh? Heh, I'll train and master it. A brow twitched in annoyance, and Kakashi sighed. You won't have time, we'll be training after school every day. Who said I'm going to train during the day? Naruto smirked mischievously. Don't you dare tell Hatake-sensei, Scarecrow. You'll die if you're training out on your own at midnight, Kamaboko. Her brows jerking uncontrollably, before she quelled down her irritation at the nickname. Instead, she smiled goofily as she rested her head on her palm. At least the prick wasn't heartless. If you're so worried, wanna join me? I can't really spar on my own, you know. Are you joking? Who would want to go with you? I see you don't want to show me your uncool side, eh? No, then you're scared? Kakashi grit his teeth, practically seething. Of course I'm not. Fine, I'll go. Great. Naruto grinned, before blinking at the bell. Oh, I'll tell you about it after training, K? Don't even think about telling sensei. Well, Kakashi, Naruto, I have a meeting with the Hokage, so I'll have to leave now. Sakuma looked concerned as he eyed the bruised and clearly exhausted children lying flat on their backs. Are you sure you still want to train? Hi, sensei, they said, almost out of breath. He watched them suspiciously for a second, but he really had to go. Alright then, but make sure you go home when you're at your limit, you hear? Hi! Naruto sighed when he finally popped away with a puff of smoke and sat up, taking a gulp of air. I thought he'd never leave. Turning her head to Kakashi, she grinned lazily. Well, how about we go on Friday since the next day will be a weekend? Training starts at the afternoon on Saturday, doesn't it? He nodded. Time? 11 o'clock. Don't oversleep. I won't. Kakashi stood up and patted off the soil and dust from his pants. Is that all? Yeah. Naruto sighed. Maybe training at such an hour would be too much for a 4-year-old. Are you sure you'll be fine? Yes. He ground out, before leaving. The Namikaze raised a brow. Is he still mad about earlier? She fell back, groaning. Me and my big mouth. Oh, Naruto. Welcome back. Kushina was about to hug the girl, before noticing how much dirt was smudged over her face, limbs, and clothes. My goodness, what did you do for training? We were practicing taijutsu, but Kakashi was sort of venting his anger on me. Naruto grinned and scratched the back of her head sheepishly. Though, I guess I was to blame for his bad day, but to rough you up this much? Anyways, hurry and take a shower. Dinner's going to be finished soon, and your father and I have been waiting all day to hear how your first day at school was. After taking a heavenly shower, Naruto threw herself to the sofa and landed on Minato's lap, doing wonders to her aching feet. The man laughed as he petted her damp hair. What are you, a cat? He asked teasingly, tickling her sides. Stop, Dad. Gah. Giggling, she rolled over and fell flat on her face. Ow. That hurt. She clutched her nose in pain. Minato barked in laughter, before pulling the girl back up on his lap and cradling her apologetically. Sorry, Naruto. He chuckled. How about we get some ice cream after dinner? Yup, see, you're fine. Kushina's cheerful voice called them in for dinner. It was steak tonight. Well, if it isn't Kushina. Naruto blinked, her hand held in her mother's as she looked back. What a pretty lady, she frowned, but she looks so much like Mikoto. How's it going? The Uzumaki woman grinned and readjusted her grip on her shopping basket. It's been quite a while since we were both on missions and all. Any changes between you and Fugaka-san? Her brows wriggled suggestively. The black-haired lady laughed softly, a little, but more importantly, I see you and Minato-san have gotten quite a lovely daughter. She crouched, now eye level with Naruto. Hello, I'm Uchiha Mikoto. You are? The girl blinked. Uchiha? I'm Namikaze Naruto. She grinned, hiding the numerous questions popping in her head. She can't be, can she? Nice to meet you, Mikoto Nizan. So sweet. Mikoto smiled, before noticing her watch. Oh dear, it's already so late. I'm sorry, but I have to go. Let's catch up soon, Kushina, and come visit sometime with Naruto-chan. The mother and daughter waved back cheerfully, before Kushina noticed Naruto's inquiring stare. She can't be Sasuke's mom. That nice person can't be. This'll prove it. Who's Fugaka-san? Oh, he's Kushina nonchalantly dropped a bag of chips into the basket, the head of the Uchiha clan. Wait, what? And Mikoto's his soon-to-be wife. Although it was arranged, they seem quite happy. Naruto? Are you okay? You're looking rather pale. Naruto stared down at the scroll in her hands as she sat on the edge of her orange-sheeted bed, ignoring the soreness from after-school training. She didn't bother to switch on the lights, making the sunset the only available light source. One hand peeled the edge of the scroll off slowly. Her eyes scanned the words with such seriousness that, if possible, it would have pierced through the thin, long paper. So Kyuubi was right. Not that she doubted him in the first place. Her lips set in a grim line as she summarized the information. The user of the jutsu steals a very large amount of the victim's chakra, and while doing so they push some of theirs into the seal. The seal functions by altering the user's chakra and multiplying it, and sending it throughout the victim's entire body, first around it, usually at the stomach, like hers, then spreading to the chest and thighs. After that, the invading chakra stretches through the rest of the victim's limbs. It takes over the physical chakra first, making the body numb before literally shrinking it. It then moves on to the spiritual chakra, which weakens the victim and makes them lose their body's memory. While the user's chakra is still fighting off the victim's, a little of it spreads and works both around the brain and surrounding it. However, this takes a lot of time, because there's not enough chakra to literally consume the victim's physical chakra. When the user's chakra is done with everything below the head, it goes up to support its comrades. They eat on the physical chakra, making the brain and head smaller. But the spiritual chakra is a lot tougher than the brain, so the invading chakra would take much longer. To avoid dying off, it would return to the seal and, to simply put, get renewed before going back, explained in the instructions below. Because the body is much smaller and the chakra had already fought off the victims, it would take less time to get back to the brain. Because of this, the victim will have frequent but short, painful headaches. Naruto read on, horror marring her face when her eyes looked over the estimated time left for the victim written. For the knowledge and memories, it would take roughly 1.5 years. For the victim to die, slowly and painfully, would be half a year after that. In conclusion, if she didn't do something about it soon, her memories will fade completely, and she would die in 2 years. She had skimmed through this part when she was in the chamber with the Hokage, so she had missed the vital information. Her eyes grew round in shock, her breath quickening and hitching as she clutched her head. Her head had started hurting again, feeling as if an arrow had pierced through, making her drop the scroll. She missed the padding of feet walking right outside her door before it was knocked on. Naruto? What happened? Minato's worried voice came through. Are you alright? Her breathing had been erratic enough to be heard, she realized. Mentally calming herself down, she squeaked out. Yeah, Naruto quickly picked up and rolled the scroll closed, had a small nightmare. She stuffed it under the pillow before ruffling the sheets and falling back, just in time for the man to enter. Minato's face was slightly scrunched in worry, but loosened into a soft, fatherly look as he gently sat beside her. Are you sure you're alright? She nodded, forcing a smile. I can't even remember it anymore, so it probably wasn't that bad. She faked a yawn, and I'm still sleepy. How much longer till dinner? Your mother says half an hour, so do you want me to wake you up then? Yeah, thanks Tuchan. He smiled as he draped the blanket over her, before pecking her cheek. Alright, see you later. If you have another nightmare, just come down, alright? Yup. Naruto said sleepily, closing her eyes, waiting for him to go out. She peeked, and noticed that the room was already empty with the door closed. I didn't even hear him, she thought in amazement. Shaking her head, the blonde quickly threw back the covers and snatched the scroll from under her pillow. If it shows what order to write the parts of the seal to activate it, then it should be easy to find out how to deactivate it. Her hands traced through the words she read carefully, her brows furrowed in deep concentration. The kanji characters are written and literally squished into a spiral. Like the Uzumaki swirl, she frowned. The user has to start from writing the beginning of the spiral, and when done, has to write another layer on top of it. The second layer is what multiplies the chakra, while the first makes it longer lasting. She scowled, so that's how the user's chakra can last as long as even 1 year. Naruto's lips set into a grim line. The jutsu is really just 2 complicated seals packed into one. They're not even mixed together. If she had dissolved the second layer, she'll be able to access the first, which would mean that she can stop the whirlpool zombie Kunoichi's chakra from cycling around her body. But her brows knit together. Wouldn't her chakra disrupt the flow of mine? Scanning her eyes over the contents of the scroll again, she found the line she was looking for. Yes, because the user's chakra should be unfamiliar with the victim. In addition to the loss of experience, it should make them unable to even mold chakra. So why? Naruto rolled up her shirt enough to see her stomach, and molded her chakra. While doing so, she noticed that her reserves were smaller than it should be at her current age, though during training she had thought it was because she shrunk and all. A lot more than Kakashi's though. She thought for a minute, before blinking. Oh, it was most likely because they were related. Their chakra would be somewhat similar. So the older Kunoichi's chakra must have also been converted into her own. Knowing that, Kabuto must have made the zombie force more chakra into the seal. She leaned against the headboard and brought her legs to her chest, staring at the now closed scroll she held with one hand, while the other rubbed her temple. It was starting to hurt from how much thinking she had done. Ugh, I might as well sleep it off. She waited in the shadows, and watched him jump down from his window, the moonlight reflecting on his silver hair. His head turned side to side, looking for her, and she stepped out of the darkness with a smirk. So you came out on time. I was worried you'd oversleep, Scarecrow. Though she couldn't see through his mask, she could somehow tell his lips curled downwards into a scowl. I'm not you, Kamaboko. Didn't I tell you to quit with that nickname and start calling me Naruto? Must have slipped my mind. He turned away from her. Where are we going to train? At the river. Come on. She grabbed his hand tightly so he couldn't pull it out, and popped away with him. Naruto applied chakra to her feet just in time. The soles of her sandals made contact with the water's surface, before she all but threw her, reluctant, friend onto the grassy land. Kakashi yelped when his behind crashed onto the ground. Sorry about that, the girl apologized, but both knew she hadn't really meant it. With a glare he got up, and hopped onto the river as well. Remember, Scarecrow, ninjutsu's also an option. Without warning he attacked, fists raised and heading straight for her cheek. Naruto ducked and caught it with ease, before using the force of his attempted hit to her advantage. She stood back up, and pulled his hand behind her, making him lose his momentum. She rammed her knee into his stomach, knocking the breath out of him before using her other leg to kick his side. Kakashi skidded back onto the grass and refrained from groaning in pain. Despite his annoyance at being so easily thrown off, he had a smirk. Taijutsu had been her strongest point after vigorous training, no doubt, and she wasn't holding back at all. While she did have strength, though he had more, Kakashi smugly noted, what made her hand-to-hand combat skills superb was her speed. He watched her determinedly. Though she did say he can use ninjutsu, Kakashi didn't want to not yet, when they're just beginning. Naruto noticed this, and had a grin. I've noticed this the day I met you, but you're really competitive, Scarecrow. She crouched, her hands balling to fists. Come on! She blocked, dodged, and countered many of his attacks, but the ones that did manage to reach her had slightly slowed her down. However, she was still a tad bit faster than him. Growing deeply frustrated, he jumped back a few meters to think. A wide smirk appeared under his mask, and he waited for the other to go on offensive. She didn't disappoint, running to him with both fists kept by her sides. While he jumped back, he noticed her peculiar style of fighting, but pushed the thought back for later. When she was close enough, he took a step back, before dipping one foot into the water. She saw it, but didn't have time to react when he kicked a large amount of water towards her, using chakra to expand the wave. Realizing what he was planning, she leaped back, but was too late. Damn it, she muttered, wishing she had worn waterproof clothes, or at least took off her jacket first. Now, her cotton outfit hung heavily. He charged, not wasting even a split second, making her avoid and block every one of his attacks. She didn't have time to unzip her jacket, never mind taking it off. Her clothes and his attempted hits were starting to affect the chakra to flowing to her feet. I'm not going to be the first to use ninjutsu, damn it! She smirked, since I'm already like this. Naruto ducked from Kakashi's kick before diving into the water and moving behind him, catching the boy by surprise. Before he understood her intentions, she grabbed hold of his ankles and tugged forcefully, knowing that his brief moment of shock had disrupted the chakra supporting him up. As he fell, Naruto applied chakra to her hands to push herself to the surface. He did the same a few seconds after, but Naruto slyly shoved him back in, though after making sure he had taken enough air she didn't want to drown her future sensei, of course. He swam away this time, but she was faster than him. He glared, attempting to pull her down like she did to him, but Naruto merely hopped out of his way. Give up? She mouthed, knowing he couldn't hear her in the water. He seemed to contemplate his options, before nodding, clearly unhappy. She walked to the land, not offering a hand because she knew he would just pull her in as revenge. She turned to see him wring out the water from his shirt and grinned. I win, she said in a sing-song tone. Shut up. He sneezed. Frowning in worry, Naruto hopped down to him. Hey, are you okay? Her question was answered with a glare. All right. But just so you know, you were the one who started using water as a weapon. They both sat down, waiting for their hair and clothes to dry. Eventually, they were lying down on the thankfully warm grass, and Naruto noticed that Kakashi had curled up, back facing her. Is he sleeping? She sneaked around, and saw that his eyes were closed, and his breathing let her know that he was. Sighing, she gently pulled him onto her back, and used the body flicker technique. Reaching the front of his house, Naruto slightly bounced to stop the boy from falling off. She stared up at his window, and wondered how the hell she was supposed to get up there without dropping him. She contemplated on leaving the boy at the doorstep, but quickly crossed out that idea. Sighing, she put him down before picking him up again, this time holding him in front of her. God, he was heavy. Testing her foot onto the wall and deeming her the constant flow of her chakra safe, she used chakra on one of her hands to keep her up before using her other foot. She tried not to think how hard it was to keep holding on to the wall while holding Kakashi, who was roughly the same size as her. Eventually she reached the window, sweating profusely as she soundlessly opened it. Thank God the idiot didn't lock it, and contemplated on throwing the boy in. No, Sakumo-sensei was going to rush up and realize that they were sneaking around at midnight. Groaning, she stepped in, making sure she didn't make a sound. The floor creaked, so she put the boy onto her shoulders again before crouching on all fours. Scurrying to his bed, she pulled off the blanket before slowly getting up and placing him there. Naruto softly moves the cover on top of him, and was about to get out before something caught her eye. A picture? The moonlight seeping in reflected off the glass of the frame, so she picked it up from Kakashi's bedside table. It was a photograph of 3 people, Sakumo-sensei with a maskless Kakashi on his shoulders, and a beautiful woman. She was laughing along with the father as Kakashi reached for her, still holding on to Sakumo's hair for dear life. That must be Kakashi's mother, Naruto realized, and smiled softly. Who would have thought this cute little boy would be that sulking, broody brat? She put the photo frame back on the table and watched the sleeping Hitaki. A serene smile reached her face as she combed her hand through his hair and whispered, "She's surely proud of you up there. Though, it probably wouldn't hurt to make some friends, Kakashi." She walked to the window, looked back once more at the boy, and jumped out. "Good night." The Hokage sighed, leaning back into his chair as he reflected back on what Naruto informed him. "I see. So we'll have to call Jiraiya here immediately then is what I'd like to say, but he has some very important spying to do a long way away from here." His lips set in a grim line. "It looks like we'll have to wait a few months." "But Hokage-sama. My memories. I know, we'll have to do something about that." The man frowned, We'll have no other choice but to seal them away. Panic was clear in her features and her voice. But if we do that, I won't remember almost everything until I remove the seal. I apologize, let me rephrase. I'll use a special type of seal that copies and preserves your memories. The copy might not be clear, but memories you remember the best would be. Oh, okay. I warn you though, it will be painful. She grinned. I'm sure I have experienced worse. Later, down in a dark, dim-lit chamber, they wind up in there often these days, don't they? Naruto was struggling from muffling her screams. The sealing process felt as if something sharp was piercing through her forehead where the Hokage's palm was, and scrambling her brain around. If only she knew it would hurt this fucking much. Tears had tracked down her cheeks just as violently as her cries tried to escape through her lips. She bit into her shirt to keep herself from biting her tongue. Naruto refrained from grabbing the man's hand off of her, and instead clenched her shorts tightly as she tried to keep still in her sitting position. Enduring the unbelievable pain for who knows how long, the Sarutobi finally moved his hand away and Naruto fell back, writhing as she all but slapped her hands over the burning mark on her forehead. I'm sorry, Naruto. I wish I could lessen the pain, but Hiruzen trailed off as he looked away from her in guilt. Waiting several moments, Naruto finally calmed down, but still breathed heavily as she slowly sat up, sweating profusely and relief wafting over her now that the pain was nearly gone. It's not your fault, Hokage-sama, so please don't look like that. She tried to laugh, but instead winced. The muscles around her cheeks hurt from her jaw clenching so hard on her orange shirt. Still, Naruto, I'm sorry for what you have to endure. Using his sleeves to wipe the sweat off his face, he sighed. You'll have to hide that seal though. I don't think you can from your parents though. Oh, Naruto touched the mark on her forehead. The color of dried blood, it took on the shape of what seemed to be a triangle with a circle inside, a line slashing over both. Does it look weird? She smiled sheepishly. Her muscles seemed to have loosened. He chuckled, ruffling and not minding her damp hair. I'd say it looks unusual. Same thing as weird, Gigi. He laughed now, a fond smile on his face. You should call me that more. It makes me feel human. She raised a brow, before grinning. I'll insult you all I want then. No, Naruto, I've never said that. Naruto! Wake up, said girl shot straight up from her desk, noticed that she was in the classroom and laughed as she scratched the back of her head sheepishly. Sorry, sensei. The class giggled and laughed at her antics, while the man only sighed. It's only been half a year since you entered the academy, yet you're already slacking off. He frowned. I do hope you're preparing properly for the exams, Naruto. But sensei, she whined, that's like another 6 months away. Her classmates hooted and shouted in agreement, Mika and Kippei the loudest in particular. It had been that long, and Jiraiya has yet to return. The mission had a few miscalculations, and his spy network had a few problems. He should be back around now, though, to Naruto and the Hokage's relief. Quiet! The Chunin yelled, silencing the room immediately. Yes, it's another 6 months away, but it is what decides your future holds. The better you do, the more likely you'll get a better team, sensei. Hi, sensei. She sat back down, yawning. Kakashi stared at her in disdain. Do you not care about your grades? Of course I do, she began, drawing a stickman figure. But I'm not worried. I'm confident I'll get a good score on the exams even without trying to shove books in my head. She then proceeded to add hair, a mustache, and a beard. To him, they looked like mere scribbles. Well, at least your drawings are getting decent. He wrinkled his nose, still sucks though. Why, thank you? Naruto rolled her eyes, before writing an arrow and the jerk sitting next to me next to the drawing. Kakashi scoffed, and ruined her masterpiece by scribbling all over it. You're welcome. She was about to shout in indignation, but noticed the teacher glaring at them. Plastering a smile, she waved, and pretended to write notes vigorously into her book. Peeking up, she noticed he sighed and went back to the blackboard, and turned to Kakashi. You nearly got us in trouble. I nearly got you in trouble. He would have known you were partly to blame anyways. But to him it would look like you're the one pestering me, wouldn't it? That's the truth, after all. Naruto glared, but he did have a point. She sighed before her mind drifted back to the seal she had hidden underneath some bandage, saying it was a cut she got from training alone. But she needed to find a new cover-up soon. A cut would heal, and that would also mean she'll lose her excuse for hiding the mark from her parents. What should I say then? She slowly frowned in thought, before rubbing the bridge of her nose tiredly. I've been doing too much thinking. She stared outside through the window at the birds. Lucky them. Flying so freely without a care in the world, she scowled, while I'm cooped up here drowning in my thoughts. Everyone, come down here and work on your bunshin. I hope you all were paying attention. Naruto frowned. Bunshin? She raised her hand. Sensei, he raised a brow. Yes, Naruto? I know how to do the cloning jutsu, but I have some conditions that prevent me from actually doing it. Kakashi turned back to her, silently questioning. Now that he looked back on it, she always did use the solid versions of the bunshin jutsu. He watched the teacher's bemused face, before sighing. Sensei, her version's different from the normal one. I've seen it many times before, and as much as I hate to admit it, it's a lot more effective. He grumbled, wondering why he was even helping her explain. She probably picked it up outside of Konoha. The girl whipped her head back at him with wide eyes, before a grin settled on her face. He turned away stubbornly, glaring at nothing in particular as the Chunin nodded. Very well, Naruto, come down and show us your Bunshin Jutsu first. Hopping down, though a little pressured by the stares and whispers, she stopped next to the desk so both the class and the teacher can see her properly. A grin stretched her face, and she formed her favorite hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The man's eyes widened. Wait. 2 clones appeared in front of her, perfect and in different poses from their original. The teacher's mouth opened and closed, not quite able to say anything as he walked up to them. He reached a hand out to their shoulder, before recoiling in shock. That's how do you know the Kage Bunshin? He took a deep breath, trying to get in his head that a 5-year-old was able to conduct such a jutsu. It's forbidden for the amount of chakra it needs, Naruto. Yeah, that's why I can only do about 10. She laughed. For some reason, I can't perform the basic clone technique. Well, she can because of the numerous chakra exercises she practiced, but it wouldn't last very long. Does Hokage-sama know about this? Now there were small, confused whispers from the students as they watched their teacher internally freak out. Yep, alright, dispel your clones and get back to your seat. Naruto was about to shrug and do so, before a brilliant plan popped in her mind. The clones seemed to understand the smirk she sent them, before one stood behind the other. The copy at the front popped away, and the cloud covered the leftover clone and creator. Wasting no time, the original Naruto disappeared via body flicker, leaving her copy behind to parade as her. Nonchalantly, it bounced back to her desk. Naruto smirked as she landed right outside her classroom. Crouching, she crawled outside so she wouldn't be seen through the windows and headed for the exit of the building. It's official, she thought with a smirk. I'm a genius. She frowned, jumping over the gates as she pondered on what to do. If I go too far, the clone I left would pop away. Blinking, she grinned. Of course. Training, she headed for the river, making sure she avoided being found out by using various illusions over herself, of course. Naruto rolled up her knee-length pants once reaching there, and hopped onto the water surface. I might as well run the whole line. And of course, with a little trick, applying chakra to also her muscles, she took off. Halfway through her training, Naruto noticed a familiar brown-haired boy walking not too far away from her, and her brows furrowed in confusion. What was Genma doing there? Remembering that the trio she was familiar with wasn't at class, she grinned. They're skipping now, are they? She hopped off of her jogging route and landed soundlessly on the grass. I guess I'll see where he's going. Most likely to meet up with Shizuka and Mika. Sneakily she followed him, eyeing the alley walls she now crept in warily before jumping on them. Just where is he going? Maybe it was the 3-zone little hideout of sorts that she shouldn't enter? Well, I followed him all the way here, so I don't think I can back out now, she reasoned, and continued to crawl on the wall. A grin full of mischief crept up her face. Maybe she can mess with him a little bit. Climbing up higher in precaution, she took out a crumpled note in her pocket. Grabbing a pencil from her pouch, she crossed out the previous words before writing, I'm watching you. Crushing it to a ball, she threw it to his feet hard. He started, looking back before down at it and picking it up. He stared at it, glanced back once more, before unfolding it. He whipped his head back and looked around, eyes wide. Naruto grinned, knowing that he wouldn't look up at her. Genma frowned, shrugged, and tossed the note away nonchalantly. Naruto felt slightly nostalgic as she stalked the boy. She would skip school and walk around town freely back when she was in her academy all the time. Though not so often, Shikamaru, Chuji and Kiba would go with her when they were bored enough. A memory of the three brought a small laugh out of her lips. Despite it not being very loud, Genma heard it sharp and clear, and his head shot up. His eyes found her wide ones and blinked in surprise before a smirk was on his lips. Oops, was all she could utter. I never knew you stalked people, Naruto. Blushing in embarrassment, she glared weakly. I'm not stalking you. I was just wondering what you were up to. Well, I can see you're up on a wall, he said incredulously. How did you get up there? Oh, this? Naruto grinned proudly. Ain't it awesome? I can walk up here as long as her feet lost contact with the wall with a loud pop. Jaya, a grunt of pain was released, but it wasn't hers. Realizing she wasn't hurt as she expected, Naruto peeked, before her blue eyes widened immediately. She all but jumped off of Genma, before going in a frenzy. Genma, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to fall on you. She fussed all over him and helped the boy sit up. For a small girl, you sure are heavy. Blame gravity. She growled, cheeks flaming. I'm kidding. He rolled his eyes, and shoved his hand in front of her expectantly. Naruto took a moment to understand. Oh. She grabbed it, and pulled him up to his feet. Sorry, it's fine, he sighed, before patting the dust off his pants. So are you coming with me? Yeah. I don't have anything else to do. Naruto grinned, hopping next to him. Where are you heading? Nowhere in particular. I'm just killing time. Eh? I thought you were going to meet up with the others. You mean Shizuka and Mika? At her nod, he waved his hand dismissively. Mika's sick, and I think Shizuka has some family business or something. Oh. I thought they were skipping like us. Anyways, come on. They had settled on a bridge over the river, where not many people cross. You're going to buy your lunch? Naruto blinked as she looked up from her wallet, before smiling at Genma. Yeah, my parents had an early mission so they couldn't make my lunch. And they said that everything but the microwave and fridge in the kitchen is off limits. As she skipped to the convenience store, Naruto pondered. The clone she made hadn't popped away despite her being so far. She knew that because she didn't have a memory rush. Maybe she had pushed in more chakra in that clone. Shrugging, she put on a henge and entered the shop. When she got back, Genma raised a brow before sighing exasperatedly. Weren't you only going to buy an onigiri and drink? Naruto held a rice ball, a packet of chips, 2 cans of grape-flavored Fanta, and 2 melapans in both arms. I thought you'd want to share, she pouted. You don't want any? I bought the drink for you too. I like grape. Great. She beamed, before putting everything down and throwing him his can, which he caught with ease. Nice catch. He merely nodded, before pointedly staring at something behind her. She followed his gaze before scrambling to her feet to catch her rolling away drink. It fell in the river with a plop. She jumped over, making Genma's eyes round in shock. He jumped and leaned over the bridge's red handle, before letting a breath out in relief. You should tell me you can walk on water before you do something like that. Heh, sorry about that. But you should have warned me earlier rather than just staring. When they settled down, Naruto suddenly grinned. At Genma's raised brow, she explained. You know, you're a lot like Kakashi, though a whole lot nicer and stuff. How am I supposed to take that as? Compliment. You're much better than him in terms of sociality. He hummed monotonously, staring at nothing in particular, before saying, You're pretty good with words. You don't sound like a 5-year-old at all. Thank you? Naruto grinned, biting into her onigiri. You're around him a lot. Doesn't his personality bother you, Fugagahi? She asked through a full mouth. He nodded before she gulped down her food. Sometimes, but when I retort back so does he, so it's all good. Better than when he's all silent and gloomy. Why no? You're thoughtful. I know, I'm a kind soul, aren't I? She boasted, laughing at herself. He nodded, almost as if because he was expected to. Resting his head on his palm, elbow on knee, he stared at her, and looked to be in deep thought. What? I've thought about this before, but you should be glad you're worthy. Naruto's brows furrowed in confusion, and she asked, Why? Because you would have seemed like an idiot if you weren't. They got back when lunchtime had just started, and Naruto looked for her clone while staying out of the other students' sight. There I am. She saw it head for the toilets. Perfect timing. She body flickered at the corner nearby it, looked around, and entered in after the clone. She dispelled it, saw flashes of Kakashi stuffing insults to her head, and stormed off. Naruto ran into the boys' bathroom door and fell back, clutching her nose in pain. What are you doing, Kamaboko? Her eyes snapped open at the nickname and voice, groaning at the sight of the boy who she was just cursing a mere moment ago. Kakashi! Don't just suddenly open the door like that. He held out his hand for her to grab it reluctantly. It's your fault for not seeing where you're going, Yuzuratanki. His eyes flashed at the blood gushing out from her wound, and they looked directly in hers with anger and worry. Was he worried for her? Don't be so reckless, Yuzuratanki. Her eyes widened at the familiar insult. Slapping his hand away, she snarled, Don't say that. She stood up, glared at him once more, and stalked off. Kakashi raised a brow. Did he strike a nerve? By using a name like Yuzuratanki? What's up with her? Elsewhere, Naruto sulked on a tree branch, using a kunai to scratch marks on the bark. Knowing him, the blonde was sure he would start using the same nickname because it affected her so much. I'm an idiot, just like what Genma told me. Naruto? A quiet girl's voice startled her. She moved behind her and looked down. Oh, Shizuka. I thought you were absent today. Yeah, but my father made me go after we settled some things. What did Genma tell you? That I would look like an idiot if it weren't for my great vocabulary. That's not true. Oh yeah? Then why'd you hesitate there, huh? Naruto grumbled. I know you agree with him. The Hyuga hummed thoughtfully, before staring up at the younger girl's face. But still, she began, took a small chunk of her rice with her chopsticks. It's rare for him to tease someone. Shizuka didn't elaborate, and chomped on her lunch. Huh! The blonde scoffed. He seems like the type to bully someone with just a few words. No, usually he would just listen and not talk to the people he likes or cares about. What if he doesn't like me? What if, deep down inside, he actually hates me? No, that's impossible. We all, including the class, think of you as a little sister. Kippei seems to like you since you help him and Mika set pranks on the teacher. She smiled softly. I think Genma just treats you differently because he couldn't help it. Naruto blushed, looking down at her fidgeting fingers. Oh, she trailed off, before wearing a thankful grin. You're like an awesome older sis, Shizuka-chan. The girl giggled, bringing her hand up and signaled for the other to come down. Curiously, Naruto obliged, jumping down using chakra to cushion her fall. I've always wanted a little sister, the Hyuga admitted softly, and the blue eyes widened as she planted a kiss on the blonde's forehead. Naruto touched it, and gazed up at Shizuka's rare wide smile. Mika growled, there's a pervert spying on the women's side. At what Naruto stared up at the tall man in absolute shock. She had recognized that white hair outside the bathhouse and knew who it was. the location another dead giveaway. Oh, so now he appears? She sighed, looking back at her older friend apologetically. You can go home first. And Naruto, you know that person? Sadly, yes I do. Oh well, good luck with him. The blonde forced a laugh as she waved her friend off. Yeah, see ya tomorrow. She turned to the man peeking through a hole on the wood. Hey you! She growled, making him snap to her in surprise. What do you think you're doing? I'm a girl who looks like Minato and Kushina put together, eh? Jiraiya smirked. So you're the little squirt the old man was desperate for me to see. Naruto didn't say anything, eyeing him warily. He chuckled, rubbing his chin thoughtfully as he surveyed her. The similarities are shocking. Are you their daughter? I never knew they had. No, I'm not. She rushed, before tugging at his clothes. Come on. We have to get to Gigi's office quickly. All right, no need to be so anxious. He raised a brow. There's nothing wrong with you, is there? Yes, there is something horribly wrong with me. So come on, you pervy sage. Well, no time to explain, Hiruzen. Naruto grinned as she walked in front of him, not showing her old mentor the pure joy she was experiencing at seeing him again. Gah! Kids have no respect these days, do they? She raised a brow. Why'd you take so long anyways? Classified, especially from brats like you, kid. The name's Naruto. Humph. How would I know that? My name's Jiraiya, the great toad sage. He had already pulled away from her and, before she knew it, gotten into his dramatic pose, arms raised and fingers outstretched. Remember the name and remember it well. Yeah, Hiruzen, I already knew all that. You're never going to drop that nickname, are you? What? I don't think quite got what you're saying. Jiraiya's brows furrowed, eyes narrowing in shock. What I'm saying, Jiraiya, is that this 5-year-old girl you see in front of you is actually, or would have been, a 17-year-old lady, born 9 years into the future. The Sandame's sober face was unrevealing as he continued. She knows about your old students Konan, Yahiko, and Nagato? The white-haired man ended through clenched teeth, before his wide eyes were on Naruto. Why no, how do you know them? They weren't dead. 2 of them were not dead when I first met them. She replied, previous cheerfulness gone and replaced by regret. Yahiko was there, but he wasn't alive. Yahiko? Jiraiya took a deep breath. Nagato used his eyes on him, didn't he? Yeah, the 6 paths of pain. The girl's lips were set in a grim line, her eyes averted from his painful gaze for a moment. She gave a small smile. But if we hurry, I think we can save him. We can save Yahiko. How? Hiruzen spoke this time, being more informed with the topic. As you may have known, Rain has been taken over by Hanzo a while back. But his position is being intimidated by the group called Akatsuki. Ah, I've heard of them. Don't tell me that those 3. Naruto inclined her head once. Exactly. Nagato, Konan, and Yahiko are in the organization, and Yahiko's the leader, though Nagato's the actual head of it in terms of power. Yahiko is what motivates the group, you could say. She looked down at the note in her hands which contained reminders of what she needed to explain. Hanzo viewed the Akatsuki as a threat to his status as leader of Amigakure and schemed with Konoha's route to eliminate them. Claiming to want to discuss peace, Hanzo lured Nagato, Yahiko, and Konan to an ambush. They did as he planned, although I'm sure they had suspicions. He forced Nagato to choose between killing Yahiko or Konan, and, not wanting to force Nagato to make the choice, Yahiko impaled himself with a kunai that Nagato was expected to use. Yahiko's last words were telling Nagato to survive, because he believed in what Jiraiya said, that Nagato would become the world's savior. Naruto sighed, subconsciously rubbing her forehead, or rather, the seal on it. This incident, I think, is what warped Nagato's judgment and view of peace. She grimly took in her future mentor's grief-stricken expression, before attempting to fix the dark atmosphere. Don't be like that, Hiruzen. She gave a small but meaningful smile. This is why I'm here, aren't I? Think of me as, what do you call him again? The guy who comes in to suddenly fix and make what seemingly unsolvable situation fine and dandy in a story? The Hokage chuckled, Deus ex machina, Naruto. He watched his former student and smiled. She's right, Jiraiya. Compared to entering a state of depression, finding a way to save those 3 would be a better action, would it not? You're right, Sensei. Naruto. Relief had shown through her grin as the time traveler said cheekily, I always am, Hiruzen. How can I not be? Her expression melted into a more mature smile. Pull yourself together, alright? He gratefully ruffled her spiky bangs. This brat, he muttered fondly. The mission would have to be done immediately, but it would be suspicious if Naruto left the village with someone as internationally famous as Jiraiya without an explanation, so we'll wait a week. That way you can clear up people's confusion and guesses. I'm sure that the fact I assigned this mission to you would surely rouse shock. I know a story you could use if asked, and for it to work you would have to bring Uzumaki Kushina along. Huh? Naruto frowned. Why? Just say to any inquirers that you both happen to have a skill that proves useful for the mission. They can't push any further into that. This is classified, and if they want to try squeezing out answers, they can come to me, of course. I won't reveal anything. Naruto furrowed her brows worriedly. Would it work? An academy student 4-year-old, no less, is going out on a mission outside of Konoha with the legendary Toad Sage Jiraiya? That had probably never happened before. Her thoughts distracted her focus on the chakra gluing her feet to the branch, and Naruto noticed a split second too late that she was about to fall. A curse escaped her lips as she tried to maneuver herself in the air to land to her feet. Softening the impact of her landing with chakra, she noticed the Hataki duo's alerted faces, and apologized sheepishly. Sorry, it won't happen again, I'll make sure of it. What's on your mind, Naruto? Usually you would have been able to catch yourself before reaching anywhere near the ground. Sakumo frowned slightly in concern. Oh no, it's just she had to tell him sooner than later, right? Biting her lip, her eyes flickered to Kakashi and kept herself from cursing when he noticed. He scowled in obvious irritation. Is it something you can't say in front of me? No, it's not like that, it's just that you would surely blow up with envy if I did that, she thought bitterly. Sighing, she shrugged. The boy was going to find out anyways. Actually, I'll have to leave Konoha for a while, a classified mission, Sakumo-sensei. Naruto could tell Kakashi was gobsmacked. Sakumo was just as astonished. Before his face hardened, Naruto, did Hokage-sama really hand that to you? Going out of Konoha to complete a mission is surely above C rank, which are for genins and up only. His eyes narrowed. It's dangerous. Wait, so Academy students do D ranks? Well, that would make sense seeing as it was the time of war, the toughest one yet. Yes, I'm assigned to that mission, sensei. What about your parents? What did they have to say about it? Jiraiya-sensei and my mother will be with me, so my father will be alright with it, I think. I haven't spoken to them yet. Jiraiya-sensei? The man repeated in shock. Do you mean Jiraiya-sama of the legendary Sannin? Yeah, why are you of all people going? Kakashi snapped bitterly. I have something important that is needed for this mission. What it is or what it's going to be used for is classified. Sakumo frowned at his son in disapproval to his tone, before sighing. Really, when is the mission? In 6 days. He nodded with a smile on his face. We have 6 days to train then. Alright, you two, run on the whole river. Kakashi scowled in clear displeasure, and shot Naruto a dirty look as if to say it's your fault. After the endless efforts of Kakashi trying to shove the blonde off their course, he and Naruto reached the end of their incredibly long warm-up. Their sensei was nowhere in sight, so they began sparring on the grass, trading numerous punches and kicks. The fight ended with Kakashi being the winner this time, and he got off her back triumphantly. Naruto scoffed, patting off the dirt on her white shirt and orange shorts. You've gotten a lot better than last time, she said, going to the river to wash off the dirt and sweat on her face. Kakashi followed suit, and splashed some of the cold water again to his swollen cheek. Naruto had given him one heck of a punch. Are you sure you weren't just getting weaker? Shut up. I'm improving heaps and bounds, you know. You just happen to pick up on stuff a little better than I do, he huffed. Whatever you say, Kamaboko. Scarecrow, she retorted back. Geez, you sure aren't cute. Don't say that as if you're older than me. Naruto stuck her tongue out at him, skipping off. Sensei's not here even though it's been quite a while, so I'm going to buy some ice cream. What flavor, Scarecrow? Why, I'm going to. Kakashi glared at her. You'd probably going to try skipping like you do at the academy anyways, eh? You noticed? Of course. You did it too many times that I find it hard to not. He sighed and shoved his hands in the pockets of his black shorts. I'm surprised the teacher hasn't. He was probably paying attention to the other students who had problems. Naruto grinned, slipping into her habit of folding her arms behind her head. Kippei especially? The silver-haired boy scoffed. He's an idiot, so of course he'd fall behind. Hey, he's stronger than you. If you got time to think about his weaknesses, why don't you think of ways to get some muscle, HM? Her comment earned her a bop in the head. Oh. Don't go violent on me. Sakumo readjusted the plastic bags in his hands again before looking up from his grocery list. Brows furrowing in confusion, he looked from side to side. Where are those two? Naruto twitched on the sofa at the sound of the doorbell. Must be him. I'll get it, she said subconsciously, before remembering that no one was home at the moment. Right, stupid me, she muttered, rolling her eyes as the door opened with a click. Yo, brat! A bright smile reached her face as she stared up at her previous, or should I say future, mentor, all the while enjoying the nostalgia coming from the way he addressed her. Hey, Ero Sennin! Naruto grinned, raising a brow. You're late. Let me guess, you ran into a lady in distress and decided to help her? Oh, how did you know? He ruffled her spiky bangs, apparently not noticing her scowl. Well, she was elated when I tried my best to please her. Naruto inwardly sighed. Trust this man to try and take advantage of a 5-year-old's ignorance. Yeah, whatever. Come on. We're wasting time as we speak. She griped, pointing at her stomach. Sheesh, you remind me too much of Kushina-chan, you know. He whined, letting himself get pulled by the girl who was half his height. So pushy and loud, with her right brow twitching irritably, she grumbled, like you're any different. Climbing up on a chair by the dining table, she molded chakra and pulled up her shirt enough to show the seal. Jiraiya's eyes widened before narrowing, and he looked up at the girl's face solemnly. You were a Jinchuriki? Yeah, Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of her neck, and you probably guessed it already. But I'm the host of the Nine-Tailed Fox. He sighed, and studied the seal on top of the Hakuin. So you really are Kushina's daughter? I've already known Minato was your father, and believed that your mother was her, but well, the seal just blew away any doubts I had. Yup. Hey, Erosenin? He grunted. Did Dad make a jutsu called the Rasengan yet? It's a jutsu where lots of chakra is charged and packed into a ball. No, I've never seen or heard that jutsu before. He smirked, getting out a paper and pencil to write some notes. Why? You want to become the creator of that jutsu before him? Not necessarily, but it would make things easier if I could use it at any time without getting questioned by him or anyone who knows it, he hummed thoughtfully, before standing up from his kneeling position. Anyways, I think it would be pretty easy to get rid of this parasite once we… Really? Naruto shot up, clutching onto his vest with glimmering hope in her eyes. Calm down. I wasn't finished, he sighed, a slight troubled expression on his face as he looked down on his paper. It seems that though the jutsu is pretty basic, there are locks, you could say, around it. The girl flew to the sofa and thrashed her limbs in frustration. Gah! Why do locks always come my way? But one corner of Jiraiya's lips quirked into a smirk. The problem will be fixed by a spark of an Uzumaki's chakra. Naruto sat up in a jolt, her eyes sparkling again. That means I can do it by myself? No, that's impossible now since too much time has passed. The user's chakra must have mixed with yours, and even if it's very little, it makes your chakra useless to this seal's security. Naruto glared at him in accusation. Hey, it's not my fault. Something went wrong on a mission, and I can't just up and leave, can I? He bopped her head. Back on topic, we can't use your chakra anymore. Wait, Naruto blinked, brows furrowing. So in other words, I have to find another Uzumaki and use their chakra? Yes, and the only person we can count on now is my mom. The girl clenched her jaw. So I need to show this and the Jinchuriki seal to her? The two rushed to the Hokage, hoping to reach the office before Naruto's parents do. Luckily, they arrived roughly 15 minutes earlier than their meeting with the village leader was. They knocked first before entering, and Hiruzen looked up in surprise. Jiraiya promptly told him what he discovered, and the older man nodded. I was planning on letting her find out about Naruto's status as a time traveler anyways, the Hokage said, sighing as he leaned back on his chair. The girl blinked. What? You both need to learn how to control the Kyuubi, isn't that right? Realization dawned to her, and Naruto nodded reluctantly. Then you two should help each other. Jiraiya rubbed the back of his neck. That's true. But how can she help? He stared down at the blonde, one eye twitching. She's a little runt now. Can't hurt a fly, can she? What, the getting you a gender change is the least I can do, you perverted. Hiruzen coughed into his hand. Physically, yes, Naruto isn't capable of attacking a demon. However, her mental state is an entirely different matter. Yeah. Naruto glared. Though I look like this, I'm still my 16-year-old self in my head, so she'll be able to get Kushina to remove the enemy seal and gain full control of the Kyuubi. Naruto nodded. A moment passed before a troubled expression crossed her face, and it didn't go unnoticed by the two other occupants of the room. Naruto? Jiraiya raised a brow, waiting for her to respond. It hasn't crossed my mind with all that happened recently. But she sighed, combing a hand through her bangs. Ever since Kyuubi first said what he thought was going on with the seal the Uzushio Kunoichi hit me with, he hasn't said a word to me. Naruto frowned, and looked up when she noticed Jiraiya had walked to the desk and leant against it. I'm guessing the reason why is that the seal keeping him and got stronger since I'm back to being 5 again, so I'll have some problems trying to talk to him. She paused for a moment. And how are my mother and I going to enter each other's mindscapes? Fuinjutsu, remember? Jiraiya chuckled. I thought you were proficient in seals? I'm getting rusty. Besides, Naruto scowled in annoyance, you didn't teach me all that much about it. I was your teacher, you were my mentor, I was your apprentice. She rolled her eyes, but to be honest, it was more like the other way round. What are you talking about? The two had clearly forgotten the Hokage, Jiraiya being outraged and Naruto being too amused. You made my little Gamachan wallet flat. Any little coin I feed it goes straight in your hands. You're exaggerating. Enough. The Hokage exasperatedly put a stop to their short-lived argument. Naruto, you'll have more than enough time to tell Jiraiya all about your life in the mission. It will last a couple of months, after all. Right. And Jiraiya, I expect you to brush her up on Fuinjutsu. Understand? The man shrugged. Yes, sensei, I thought she told you to before. Hiruzen said as he sighed, sipping some of his cold tea. Minato's eyes flicked over to Kushina's, before he gazed down to the sitting Hokage. I should have known she'd lie and leave the most troublesome things to me, the aging man grumbled. His eyes sharpened then, the atmosphere growing even more sober and tense as the couple waited for him to speak. The Sarutobi weaved his hands together to his mouth, eyes watching their faces. Kushina will be accompanying Naruto and Jiraiya on a mission in rain. Minato tensed visibly, eyes narrowing. Naruto? She's still… Yes, I do realize that she's still a student of the academy. The Hokage turned over to the shocked woman, but she's much needed. And about that girl's safety, Kushina and Jiraiya will be more than enough. The blonde balled his hands to fists. I know they're strong. However, he bit back from continuing, remembering that this was their village leader. His brows knit closer together anxiously as he delved deeper into his worries and thoughts. forcing Kushina to try to calm his nerves. She only brought her hand to his arm soothingly, and though that action was small, it was meaningful. Eyes of deep blue shone in determination as they looked up at him, strengthening her words. Minato, I wouldn't let anything happen to our daughter, you hear me? He nodded, and regret reflected in his eyes for inadvertently doubting his girlfriend's abilities. Kushina smiled forgivingly, bringing her hand down to squeeze his larger one. Don't worry, Jiraiya will also be with us, remember? He would see to it that a maiden's well-being is at its finest. The meeting carried on for a while longer, until they were dismissed at sunset. The couple walked hand in hand down the streets. Minato watched Kushina with a fond smile even as she talked about the most insignificant of things. He watched the way her fiery red hair sway gently in the breeze, the way her eyes reflect the warm colors of the slowly setting sun and the now lit lanterns around them. Hey Minato, HM? He noticed her gaze was elsewhere and followed it. His eyes found an accessory shop. Mind if we go take a look? He chuckled, giving her hand a light squeeze. You know I won't. Let's see what they have. The hair ornaments were stunning, and the man could see sparkles in her eyes as Kushina marveled at them. With a smile, he picked up the one she had been watching so keenly. Do you like this? The piece was small, simple yet beautiful hair clip. The ornament was a sapphire gem embedded in the front of the silver pin, and upon closer inspection a word had been engraved on the metal piece. She tipped her head down in answer to his question. Happiness. She smiled up at him. At first, it reminded me of your eyes, but after a while I thought Naruto's blue, doe-like eyes suited better. I guess you're right. It'll be nice to buy it for her. He leaned slightly towards the display table and shifted his head to see his girlfriend. What about you? She grinned. Well, why don't you pick for me? Kushina, he whined. You know very well how bad my sense of style is. Hey, I want you to choose, so that's fine, isn't it? Alright. His blue eyes nervously looked around for something that would suit her tastes and match her red hair. Hey there, dear customers. A cheerful teen girl, most likely 16, smiled at them. We not only have hair accessories, but necklaces, bracelets, and anklets. Kushina hummed, her index finger tapping her chin thoughtfully. I've always been wanting for a new bracelet. The teen grinned as she pushed out a smaller display table, and on top of it was crowded with beautiful bracelets. Some were colorful beads or shells, simple bangles most likely coated with gold and silver, and the one that caught Minato's eye the most was a charm bracelet. The charm bracelet had both a sapphire and scarlet gem linked on the chains. In between those two was a silver heart, like the shape of the link attaching it to the bracelet. Minato shifted slightly to see if Kushina had her eyes on it as well, and sure enough, she was mesmerized by it. The girl giggled. That suits you too perfectly, I think. Then it's settled, Minato said, a soft grin on his face. He dug out some ryo for the bracelet. I'm choosing this one for you, Kushina. The red-haired woman beamed up at her boyfriend. Welcome home. Naruto smiled warily at her parents, before cocking her head to the side at her mother. You seem really happy. Did something good happen? She thought she was going to get questioned and scolded for accepting the mission. Kushina merely grinned goofily, and Naruto took notice of the charm bracelet on her left wrist. Whoa, that's pretty, right? The lady draped an arm around Minato's shoulders. We also bought a little something for you, too, Naruto. When Kushina whipped out a small pink packet, Naruto instinctively caught it. Minato smiled. It's a hair clip, so it won't get in the way or damage during training and missions. His face grew a little sober then. Speaking of missions, we'll talk it over dinner, alright? Kushina quickly cut him off as she watched Naruto open the small gift and stared at the pin in awe. Right. Hey Ka-chan, Tu-chan, may I put this on now? Of course. Why do you have to ask? The mother grinned, pushing the girl to the bathroom where the mirrors were. Come on, I'll put it on for you. Sighing, Minato went to the kitchen and prepared to cook their meal. Sat on Minato's lap, Naruto fingered her bandage wrap on her forehead, brows furrowed in thought. Both parents noticing her agitation, they frowned. What's the matter, Naruto? Kushina asked, scooting down from the sofa and crouched in front of them. Gigi told me that they wouldn't know it, but what if they did? Shaking her head, she smiled. I'm just a little upset that I have to keep this thing on longer since the scratch got an infection before or something. She curled her lips down in disgust. The scar looks bad. I see. Kushina cradled the girl's face with her hands, smiling in pity. Make sure to wash that wound properly, alright? Minato had a bemused frown. But that is odd. It's been how many months was it? 5 or 6 months? That's about it, Naruto grinned, though inwardly she was weeping. Time sure flies by quickly. She loved every second she had with her mother and father. Can't time go by slower? Naruto smiled a small smile as her mother tucked her in bed. Tu-chan was angry before, wasn't he? No, Kushina smiled back at her as she got down from the chair and knelt on the floor. She rested her chin on her palm, leaning onto the bed. He's just a little upset that he wasn't allowed to know more about the mission since it's, well, classified. Okay, the girl yawned, turning over on her stomach, folding her arms under her head and on the pillow. Ka-chan? Yes? Naruto pursed her lips for a moment, hesitating, until she shook her head. It's nothing. Her brow rose, but Kushina didn't press on. Alright then. She sighed with a smile. But remember that you can always talk to me about anything, alright? Yeah, thank you, Mama. Kushina could tell that Naruto was slipping away into dreamland, and so she soundlessly waited for her to sleep. Once the girl's breathing became heavier, the mother gently pulled the blanket up and combed her fingers gently through the girl's bangs. A frown settled on Kushina's face at the sight of the dark crimson mark on her forehead. Sighing, the woman got up, stretching her legs lightly. She stared at the girl's sleeping face, and a sad smile reached the Uzumaki's lips. I wonder when the day will come when you tell us what's clouding your mind, Naruto. Naruto won't be here for the next couple of weeks, so when she comes back make sure to help her with what you've learned while she was gone. The teacher said with a forced smile, stacking up his papers. Hi, Sensei, the students chorused. Kakashi glared down at his notes. Today, Naruto was only preparing for her mission. He was glad that she wasn't boasting about it, and a little unnerved since that was unlike her. Huffing, he scratched more writing into his book angrily. A heavy scowl set on his face. What was so different about a stupid girl like her, and he refused to acknowledge that she was pretty skilled in the ninja arts? He was just as, if not more, talented, so why was Naruto getting all the special treatment? Kakashi let out a harsh sigh that was muffled by his mask and set his pencil down. He glared at the window, resting his cheek on his palm. In his head, he listed off the bad points of the girl, with the teacher's boring words completely hovering over his head. Of course, the idiot was too loud. That was one, very annoying aspect of her. 2. She ate ramen too much. 3. She kept praising ramen too much. 3. She constantly boasted about her cup ramen stack. He realized that the more he thought about her, the more agitated and annoyed he got. So Kakashi settled on pondering what he lacked. One thing the boy learned full well: Naruto was a chakra and stamina powerhouse. Her punches and hits after a few training sessions, she most likely worked on it, got much stronger as well. As much as he hated to admit it, she had the perfect qualities as a shinobi. And like a kid being envious of the toy another kid got, Kakashi wanted those qualities. It wasn't like he was incompetent for his age. No, it was the complete opposite, and he was proud of that until she came along. His chakra was enough for maybe an average 12-year-old, but Naruto now had probably as much as an average Chunin's chakra. What made Kakashi feel worse about it was that she had originally as much chakra as he did now. She had worked harder than him for it, even going as far as to sneak out at night to train. Unexplainable emotions that irritatingly clouded up in his chest were new to him. It grew stronger at the memory of his father ruffling Naruto's hair proudly after she managed to complete an exceptionally hard training method. Kakashi had to fight back the urge to march over and pull Naruto away from him, and when he and Tsukumo got home, the boy would always go to the shower, not speaking a word. And all because of Naruto. He and his father's relationship wasn't going too well. Tsukumo had tried, talking to him over dinner about how his day was, but Kakashi was too irritated from their training sessions to say anything other than "It's going fine, father." The man never stopped asking, but it was obvious he knew the answer every time. Eventually, through his thinking, Kakashi wondered on a question. He tried squashing and stuffing it away in the farthest back of his mind, but the thought kept drifting its way back up. What if he told Naruto what was happening? How it was all her fault for being, well, just there. That if she hadn't come to Konohagakure, everything would have gone all smoothly. That she shouldn't be here. She didn't belong here. Everything wasn't making sense with her being here. The bell rang, signaling the end of the last class of the day. He got up from his chair, shoved his books in his bag, and left the room. What if he told her, Namikaze Naruto, that she was an outsider? Naruto packed the last of her kunai in her bag and zipped it up before throwing it on her shoulders. She walked away from her bed to her shelf. On it, other than the books and scrolls, lays the clips she had gotten from her parents and a hittite, her forehead protector. She smiled at the black straps tucked underneath the scratched and chipped metal. Picking it up, she tied it around her forehead, nostalgia wafting over her at the feel of the cloth behind the cold plate. Sighing, she took the pin and went to the mirror hung on her wall, clipping it on to hold her bangs to the right side. Much like her mother, Naruto grinned at its reflection. The sapphire was absolutely beautiful, and she loved the little word engraved on it. Her old, or future in this case, clothes had been tucked in a drawer for when she's old enough to fit in them. As much as she missed the orange and black outfit, it wasn't the time to wear them yet. But that didn't mean wearing something similar, did it? She and her mother had gone shopping for appropriate clothing. Their destination was rain, after all. She had gotten a black, waterproof jacket with a hood suited for shinobi, which had hidden pockets inside that was for packing kunai and shuriken, so the weapons wouldn't be able to tear its way out of the cloth. So it would be a good idea to keep it unzipped during fights in case. Underneath she wore a normal dark red shirt. There were no patterns on it, except for the black line spiral on the back. Naruto wore shorts that were black like her jacket, but she folded the ends. The reverse side of the clothing was orange, something Naruto had loved. For her feet she wore the standard blue ninja sandals. Kushina's voice came from her open door, and she guessed that her mother was in the entrance hall. Naruto, are you ready? Jiraiya-sama's here. Hi! She jumped slightly to adjust the bag straps on her shoulders, before running out. Kushina stared at her daughter in concern as they prepared their beds on the grass. Usually a little girl her age would be scared during the first night of their first mission. It was then she remembered that Naruto might have camped around before with her old sensei. She sighed, shaking her head. She needed to hurry. Night would be coming soon, and they still had to prepare their dinners while there was still some of the sun's light. I hope it won't suddenly rain. Getting tense out is such a pain. Kushina grinned at her thought. I rhymed. Jiraiya nodded at their campsite. The sleeping bags were done, food out, traps set. Alright, I guess we should start planning on guarding shifts. Actually, Naruto said, a proud grin on her face, I have been practicing a way to make that easier. Oh? Yup. I've been making a clone and made it sat still while I slept at night for a week. The longest it can last now is about, then, her grin turned smug, 5 hours. Kushina's brows were raised. Amazing, she praised before glaring. But you're not supposed to train when it's time for you to sleep. But Jiraiya sighed, waving a hand dismissively, she'll live even without a few hours of sleep. He then turned to the little girl. How long did it last on the first night? Roughly 30 minutes. Naruto smirked. How's that? Great improvement. That method would be highly useful for this mission. Right. I'm amazing. The blonde had a goofy grin on her face. You gotta teach me some awesome seals, Hiruzen. What, you brat? Call me Jiraiya-sama. Nostalgia wept over her, making Naruto's grin widen even further. Hiruzen. She stuck her tongue out. Pervy sage. Kushina scoffed. Now you act your age? She muttered with an amused smile on her face. She shook her head and stretched. Well, I'm going to check around, so you two plan the mission out. Jiraiya and Naruto nodded, watching as the woman walked off. When should we show her that seal? Jiraiya said, pretending not to notice the quick change on the blonde's expression. Her grin swept off, replaced by a blank look. Of course, as soon as possible, she replied, placing a kunai under her pillow. Then I can finally take this mark off my forehead. Does it bother you, HM? Oh no, not really. She sighed, lying down on her sleeping bag. It just makes my mind fuzzy when I try to remember my important memories. Jiraiya raised a brow. Have you consulted the Hokage about that? Yep, he says it's because the seal takes extra care to the ones I remember the most vividly, as if I was there. Is that so? I never heard of a seal like that before. It seems like it's an ancient one. Ah, no wonder. Jiraiya rubbed the back of his neck. I'm not very knowledgeable in ancient Fuinjutsu. Say, when can I get a toad contract? When are you going to tell me about your life? When I get a toad contract, Jiraiya huffed, before he started going off to his own sleeping bag. I mastered the sage mode when I was 16, so shouldn't it be natural to want to try mastering it at an earlier age? Her words made him stop in his tracks. Mastered? The sage mode? When she was 16? His mind was in jumbles. What? You heard me, she smirked. I mastered sage mode when I was 16. He massaged the bridge of his nose. Even so, it's much too early for you at your current age. Your mental state may be 17 or something, but right now you're a 5-year-old child. What? But, he drew his index finger to his mouth, silencing her. Your mother's coming. We never did plan the mission yet. Kushina heard her, and set her hands on her hips. You haven't? She huffed. Honestly, did you two bicker again? Something like that, Jiraiya sighed. Well, I believe we should start heading to Rain immediately. Now that I think about it, you haven't really been told the details of the mission, have you? Yes. She hissed, crossing her arms over her chest. All I've been told is that we're heading to aim to stop an ambush. We're stopping Hanzo from ambushing Akatsuki, an organization that has been gaining power in Rain. Hanzo fears that the people will choose Akatsuki over himself as the ruler, Naruto said smoothly. Kushina blinked, surprised that she can understand all that before remembering the girl's abnormally high IQ. She nodded, taking in the information. So we're going to stop that from happening? Did the group Akatsuki request our help? Jiraiya answered this time. No, we're going there on our own accord. He sighed, rolling his shoulders. We're not sure how much money we'll get from this mission, but it would definitely give Konoha and AIM a better relationship. Hanzo's recently getting a bad reputation, after all. I see, so what's so important that an academy student has to come? And me? Surely there are stronger ninjas in the village. The reason, Kushina, is a seal. Naruto, show her now. When Naruto rolled up her jacket and shirt, the glowing seal made the mother's eyes widen in shock. They widened even further when she realized that there were not one, but 2 seals. Not only that, but underneath the second seal was one she would have least expected. With horror, Kushina realized that the first seal was the Hakuin, the ultimate seal used for the 9-tailed fox. I'm home. Oh, right. Minato's happy mood went down the drain as face drooped. They're off on a mission without me. He ruffled up his blonde hair and huffed. Throwing himself on the couch and landing on his stomach, he shoved his head in a square-shaped pillow and groaned. It was so lonely without those two's usual chattering and laughs. And this was going to continue for, at most, 2 months? By the time they're back, he'd be dead from severe depression. He whipped his head up, imagining himself with hollow cheeks, panda eyes, white hair and skin, and sticks as limbs made goosebumps all over Minato's skin. Mouth opening and closing with eyes wide with terror, the man mentally screamed, Kushina Naruto. And that's what's making me like this. Minato had been hanging onto Tsukumo's back pathetically, and seemed to take no notice of the little boy nearby and his eye twitching. Save me, senpai. I don't want to be a zombie. What even if you confront me about it? A light bulb seemed to flicker in the silver-haired man's head as he stared down at his son. How about staying over at our place? You can stay as long as you want to until they come back. Wait, father, that's… Really? You're awesome. The best senpai in the world, Tsukumo chuckled. Having Minato at their apartment would light the place up a bit, especially their meals. Your family not being here sure changes you, huh? I thought you decided on being tough the moment you step out of your house. Yeah, but… Kakashi huffed, flopping down on the ground and plucking out some grass leaves. Who was this guy? Naruto's father? Did she come to Konoha with her family? He groaned at the thought of the blonde man staying at his home. Naruto? Kushina's voice shook, turning her head to Jiraiya. Oh, this isn't funny. What kind of sick prank is this? That seal is real, he said, face unrevealing. Naruto is here because of a Jutsu Kabuto, the future Orochimaru's apprentice, used on a dead Whirlpool Kunoichi. He, using that technique, made her cast a seal that reduces the victim to a much younger age. Naruto spoke this time. I panicked, and used my dad's technique to teleport away. But the Hiratian seal mixed with that Kunoichi seal, which is how I ended up in this time. That can't be. Kushina's deep blue eyes had moistened, tears ready to fall. I mean, does Minato know about this? Who else knows? Us three, Naruto answered, and the Hokage. Tuchan doesn't know about me time traveling. So we, Minato and I, are really your parents? Naruto grinned. Yeah, her eyes widened when Kushina kneeled down and hugged her tightly. Jiraiya watched the scene silently, eyes softening as the woman's tears streamed endlessly down her cheeks. She whispered her daughter's name repeatedly, hiccuping and sniffling. Did we put that on you? Naruto smiled a small smile, both eyes and nose stinging. She reached up her mother's back to clutch her clothes, vision becoming blurry with tears. Soundlessly, she listened as Kushina tried to form coherent words, apologizing for the Jinchuriki seal Naruto had. Naruto only hung tighter onto her mother, pain increasing as the woman went on with her apology. It's not Tuchan or your fault, it's another man's. You both couldn't have done anything about it because it was too sudden. Speaking seemed to dissolve her will to refrain from crying, and she let out sobs. Her cry seemed to contain all the emotions she felt from meeting everyone again, the Sandaime, Jiraiya, her father and mother, the utter joy she felt in seeing the old man alive, seated in his desk, and occasionally with the pipe in his mouth when he's on a break. The urge to cry at the pure nostalgia she felt from seeing Jiraiya, the pervert she grew to love like a father, peeking through a hole in the wooden wall fence at the women's bathhouse. The tightness she felt in her throat, and wanting to cling onto them when she saw her parents at the door, welcoming her home. Everything flowed out violently in her tears as Naruto dug her face into her mother's shoulder. Jiraiya sighed, watching the mother and daughter sleep with a smile. He and Naruto had decided on telling Kushina about the seal tomorrow, seeing as the woman was most likely exhausted. Those two hadn't stopped crying, and when they finally did, they were too tired to take watch, so they decided on using chakra-sensing seals and spread them around the camp. He yawned. He had been awake until a few hours past midnight since the seal only works for roughly 5 to 6 hours. Checking for chakra signatures around one last time, he stood up and stretched, walking to the seal on his bag. He picked it up, drew his chakra into it, and watched as the complicated characters climbed up from the tip of his finger to around his wrist. It should spark chakra when someone enters within the range of the other seals, waking him up from his sleep. Letting out a sigh of relief when he finally lied down inside his sleeping bag, he gratefully thanked whoever created the art of seals, and succumbed to exhaustion. Kakashi glared at his cooked salmon, and stabbed it with his chopsticks, imagining it was the blonde man seated in front of him. His father was chuckling at Minato's story, and the little boy couldn't figure out what was so funny. Kakashi continued picking at his food. Tsukumo notices this and frowns. Don't do that. The boy stops, and he raises a brow. The man had never seen Kakashi play with his meal before. What's wrong? Nothing, Kakashi said curtly before gulping down his miso soup. Minato smiled. Thanks for being Naruto's friend, Kakashi-kun. He blinked, looked down at his rice and nodded. So he really was Naruto's father. Are you going to do the graduation exams? Minato asked pleasantly, and he was answered with, again, another nod. He grinned. The little boy was cute. I see. What do you want your team sensei to be like? Kakashi thought on his question. Smart, strong, calm. Minato hummed thoughtfully, before staring at Tsukumo, who sat next to the boy. His description fits you. And you, Tsukumo said, smiling, mostly during missions though, the calm part. Hey! I'm calm when I want to be. It makes me wonder if you and Kushina swapped personalities. Tsukumo chuckled. I remember the days when she used to be brash and loud. Now she's all grown up. She's still brash. Kakashi looked between the two, brows furrowed in confusion. Are you and father good friends? He asked Minato, who simply grinned. He's my senpai from the academy, and my girlfriend, Kushina, she's one of your mother's best friends. Tsukumo ended for him when the blonde trailed off, smiling at the boy's wide eyes. Don't you remember them, Kakashi? Minato and the red-haired lady? Kakashi frowned, shaking his head before taking a bite of his cooked fish. He was about to eat another, but paused. I remember. She used to draw with me, although he never quite understood what she drew. She wasn't very good at drawing. Sakumo nodded. She's Kushina. She hung around our house quite often to see your mother and play with you. I was only around a few times with your father, since most of the time we'd be on missions, so I guess you wouldn't remember me. Minato smiled before he thought for a moment. You and Kushina got on rather well. I remember we all went to the swings at the playground with Mikoto. Do you remember her? She has black hair and eyes. Kakashi nodded, recalling that he had played with her and Kushina-san when he was younger. He loved swinging then, but now he didn't see how he found it entertaining. He ate a piece of eggplant from his soup. She used to hum a lot of songs with mother. Kakashi ignored how his chest seemed to constrict with each tick of the clock, and stuffed more food down his throat. Using his chopsticks, he ate all the rice left in his bowl, leaving none left, before setting both down. Gokisusama. May I leave the table? At Sakumo's nod, Kakashi picked up his dishes and brought them to the kitchen. When he got out, he went straight to his room. Minato smiled sadly as he watched the boys back, and faced Sakumo when the bedroom's door closed. He really changed, huh? Sorry about that, Sakumo sighed. I really wish he would open up more. The Namikaze shook his head. It's been tough on him. Sorry about suddenly mentioning her when it's still. No, it's alright. Sakumo took the last bite of his fish and rice. It's about time we moved on. Not forget, but be able to talk about her happily. She would have wanted that. Minato smiled, before picking up his plate and bowls. It's about time we finished dinner, don't you think, senpai? He grinned. Kakashi still has his sweet tooth, doesn't he? Sakumo chuckled, stacking his dishes as well. Yes, he does. Great. Strawberry shortcakes for dessert. They had changed into civilian clothes and entered a small village to find a place to rest. The three bought groceries and stayed at an inn, and Kushina made more rice balls for their trip. Once they were settled, the three sat down facing each other on their futons. Alright, it's about time we discuss why you're on this mission, Kushina. Jiraiya sighed. Initially it was because the Hokage planned on letting you help each other tame the Nine Tails, to put it frankly. But now we have another reason why we need you right now. Naruto caught Kushina's attention by rolling up her shirt, revealing her 2 seals. On the second seal, there's a lock that stops me from destroying it. I need your chakra to get rid of it, since mine is already affected by the caster of the jutsu. Kushina nodded, crawling over. Where is it? Naruto pointed at it, and the woman immediately put the tip of her finger on the swirl mark. She drew her chakra to it, and felt the mark heat up to the point it almost burnt. When Kushina brought her hand down, Naruto grinned. The swirl had disappeared. Jiraiya chuckled as he got out a blank scroll. Finally. Okay, it will take a few moments, so be patient, Naruto. He placed his right palm on her stomach and narrowed his eyes in concentration. The seal slowly contracted, squeezing itself into an inky black circle before it was sucked onto Jiraiya's hand. He immediately slammed it onto the scroll while Kushina and Naruto watched in fascination as the seal spread back into its former self. The blonde's eyes were full of awe. It had been a long time since she last did or saw someone do this. There, it's done, Jiraiya said with a sigh. Naruto blinked. She took a moment to take in his words. That was over and done with so easily that it's weird. Huh! The man scoffed. It was easy for you since you didn't have to do anything, but for me it took a little effort. You're getting a little rusty, she retorted. It was a piece of cake when I move a seal. Jiraiya scowled. If you haven't realized, this is an ancient, complicated seal, not an ordinary one. Yeah? Kushina sighed at their antics. Well, at least the problem's solved. She frowned. If the seal was still on you, what would have happened? Naruto blinked at her question. Oh, I would have died within a year. Oblivious to her mother's horrified face, she flopped back onto her fluffy futon with a content sigh. With that gone, I can think of plans on how to save the world in peace. Jiraiya rolled his eyes, and Kushina recovered from her thoughts of what if she hadn't been able to unlock the seal, or if Jiraiya had failed. Naruto yawned loudly, eyes opening and closing droopily. For some reason I'm starting to feel really sleepy. The girl was knocked out within 5 seconds, and Jiraiya blinked. She must have been a lot more stressed about it than I thought. She can hide a lot of how she feels, after all. Her masks are very strong. Kushina smiled regretfully. Almost makes one wonder how she learned to make them that way. Like she said before, it's not your fault or Minato's. Besides, we'll be able to stop that from happening again with her here. Jiraiya stood up, and walked until he stood next to her. He put his hand on top of her head comfortingly. Don't think too much on it. Yeah, thanks, Jiraiya-sama. Kushina finally grinned. You're welcome. For a pervert, you're an awesome guy at making people feel better. Of course, Jiraiya bit his thumb, grinning mischievously. I'm a super pervert after all. You're unbelievable. Wait, why were you summoning a Kuchios for? HM? Oh, just to send this away. He waved the closed scroll containing the seal, before tossing it to Fukasaku. It's been a while, Fukasaku-sama. Tell me, Jiraiya-chan, are you using the way you address me to make up for your actions? The toad asked, catching the scroll that was the same size as him with ease. Jiraiya rubbed the back of his head with a goofy grin. And yes, it's been a while. Oh, hello there, Kushina-chan. How are you? Could be better, Fukasaku-sama, she replied sheepishly, before smirking. You haven't changed a bit. I guess I haven't, he chuckled, before leaping to the sleeping girl. He stared before blinking, as if having come out from his daze. This child, is she yours, Kushina-chan? She looks an awful lot like you and Minato-chan. Oh, it's a little complicated, but yes, she is. Don't tell Minato, though. He doesn't know the situation, and Kushina stopped herself from rambling with a light blush of embarrassment. Naruto's her name. Fukasaku furrowed his brows. Naruto-chan? Kushina cocked her head to the side, a worried but confused expression on her face. Is there something wrong? No, there isn't, but have I met her before? Jiraiya watched Fukasaku's reaction to the blonde girl carefully. The smile on his face was gone, now being replaced with seriousness, as he slowly brought his hand down back to his side. Hey, Kakashi, where's Naruto? Mika asked, obviously bored as she crouched and leaned against said boy's desk. Shizuka got her book and tapped the girl's head with it, and Mika got the message. She huffed, and sat on Naruto's desk, chomping on her bread. Kakashi, who was resting his cheek on his palm, looked at her in annoyance before going back to his book. How would I know? All he knew was that she was off on a mission. Just the mention of her name had him irritated. Gah! You're no fun. Shizuka smacked the orange-haired girl on the back of her head, rolling her eyes, before she glanced at the book in Kakashi's hand. Legend of a Gutsy Ninja? Did Naruto show you that one? She had a small smile on her face. She was the one who showed me it. I found that book interesting. Mika blinked, before wrinkling her nose. You talk a lot only when the conversation is related to books. What are you whining about this time, Mika? Gunma walked up to them, raising a brow. Gunma. Mika threw herself on him, wailing. Shizuka loves books over Mika. Isn't she too cruel? I thought you've realized that a long time ago already. Gunma. She cried pitifully. Kakashi scowled, and even with the mask they can tell by hearing it in his tone. You're too loud. The orange-haired civilian was much too similar to a certain blonde. Go away. A nerve threatened to pop as Mika glared. And you're too much of a brat. She flicked him on the forehead. Hard. You. Mika smirked, keeping him from attacking her by holding him down with her hand. Her two friends watched in amusement as Kakashi waved his hands violently at her in vain. Oh, Mika, that's enough. Said girl pouted at Gunma, before she abruptly let go and stepped back just in time for Kakashi to fall onto his desk. But honestly, she started, scowling, it's so boring without Naruto. I'm getting sick of the pranks Kippei thinks up. Shizuka rolled her eyes, then why listen to him at all? Because if I don't I'll be bored. Kakashi frowned at her, before shaking his head. What a waste of time. Mika glared before smirking. Oh really? I guess you haven't heard. He stared at her, and she continued. Pranks are the best way to build up on your stealth. Isn't that just an excuse? Mika's brow twitched, and she averted her gaze. And no. I'm telling the truth. I mean, being able to prank a bunch of chunins is an amazing achievement, isn't it? You can use the stuff you learned from setting them up on high-ranked missions. Kakashi's ears seemed to twitch at the last three words, and Mika knew she hit her mark. Devil horns seemed to grow on her head, and she smirked evilly. Think about it. You can slip right under the enemy's noses if you master the arts of stealth. To reach that point, you need to be awesome at doing pranks. Shizuka and Gunma sighed simultaneously. Mika had recruited another ally. It's a little sad that Naruto isn't around to see this, but oh well. The orange-haired girl, clad in black, smirked as she turns to Kakashi, and then to Kippei. They nod, and she nods back. Time to put the plan in action. She was eternally grateful to Naruto. The little blonde had taught her, and Kippei, he had taken quite a while to get it down, how to walk, crawl, on walls. The ceiling in the academy building was high, and no one would suspect people to be hanging from it. The three were using one hand to keep them crouching upside down. Mika's expression cried hysteria as she got one paint-filled balloon out, the two boys following suit. The kids shifted in their positions and adjusted their grip on their weapons. Mika looked down at the bunch of chunin, obviously having a meeting. They were talking about the schedules. She rolled her eyes at one of them as they said that it would be a good idea to shorten snack breaks. She grinned, and nodded to her partners. They sucked in a breath, aimed, and fired. They kept going, taking out more balloons, fully enjoying the yelps and shouts of their teachers. The adults were too shocked to move for a moment, and the three took advantage of that. Now the floor and the teachers were a fabulous mix of pink, blue, yellow, and red. Mika grinned. Now for the final touch. Now, Kakashi, Kippei. The two boys complied, and the three watched in awe and satisfaction as a whole cloud of glitter sparkled its way down onto the utterly horrified group of chunin. You brats are so dead. One of them screeched when he finally came to his senses. Run, run, run! Mika laughed, oblivious to Kakashi's terrified expression. Why on earth did he agree to this? Oh, hold on! The civilian girl abruptly stopped, whipping out a camera from her bag. Need to take a picture? It should be here, Jiraiya said as they reached close to Amigeku's borders. Naruto and Kushina shared a glance, before the latter asked, What should? The place we decided on, he replied. Oh, here he is. The mother and daughter did a double take when they heard a deep voice behind them. This is the map of the village, Jiraiya-sama, the man said. He wore a black coat, and the shadows covered his face completely. His equally black-gloved hand appeared from underneath his coat, holding out a paper. Jiraiya nodded. Thank you. The man bowed his head before disappearing. Naruto closed her gaping mouth, blinking. He's your spy? Yes, what did you think? But he looks like a freaking ghost. Kushina smacked the back of her head. Don't be rude. He might still be around. Hey, even you're not denying it. Jiraiya rolled his eyes. Come on, we should hurry. Naruto tiptoed to see the map. Oh hey, it has updates on what's going on. What? Let me see. Kushina nodded. That's very useful. It looks like the ambush hasn't started yet. The girl furrowed her brows and clenched her fists. Jiraiya ruffled her hair. Don't worry too much. We'll save them. Naruto sighed and took a deep breath. He was right. Worrying about it wouldn't get her anywhere. She followed them into the village after they'd written down their aliases, noticing the stairs. She shivered, being reminded of unpleasant childhood memories. Hanzo must be confident if he lets in 3 possible threats inside the village, she noted, eyeing the guards. They had only turned more rigid at their appearance, but hadn't moved from their spot. We're in civilian clothes, and look nothing more than a wandering family. They're probably just dismissing us as people looking for a home, Kushina explained. The 3 of them wore waterproof coats, wearing their hoods. They sealed their weapons inside small scrolls and hid them inside the hidden pockets of Naruto's jacket. As expected, one shinobi finally walked up to them, glaring. Open your bags, and take off your coats. They did as told, and the man patted Naruto and Jiraiya's body. He left Kushina alone, seeing as she wasn't wearing anything bulky or loose. Naruto inwardly grinned when he finally stopped. Her jacket was thick and puffy, so of course he wouldn't feel the scrolls. While the group wore their coats back on, the guard raised a brow. Why are you wearing such hot clothing? It isn't very cold, Kushina answered for him, smiling pleasantly. She has a slight fever. He blinked before stepped back. My apologies. You may go. Leave as soon as you're done here. Nodding in thanks, the team rushed to an inn. They pulled down their hoods once under shelter. The receptionist was an old woman, who smiled at the sight of the blonde little girl. Good evening. A room for 3? At their nods, she stood up and took a key, a wooden block with the room number attached. Here you go. Thank you, Jiraiya said, and Naruto grinned up at her as she followed her mother to their room. Naruto immediately took out a duvet out from the large, built-in cupboard and threw herself on it. Naruto, make your bed first. Kushina scolded lightly, hiding a smile. But I'm tired. Jiraiya stayed quiet for a moment, staring at the blonde with sharp eyes. As I thought, the seal took a big toll on her. He frowned, or maybe her exhaustion could just be because she hadn't gone on a trip outside for a long while. Naruto was in her 5-year-old body, after all. No buts. Come on, I'll help you, the mother sighed, getting out the sheets and mattress. While they sorted out the futons, Jiraiya studied his map of the village. He furrowed his brows, thinking. The organization's goal is world peace, so surely they wouldn't immediately start attacking them when they entered the area. Furthermore, they had a child, so that should lower the Akatsuki's guard. The Akatsuki headquarters was far from where they were staying, Jiraiya noted with a frown. He then looked for the station's Hanzo or shinobi might be in, and the frown morphed into a scowl. There was one, in the way to their path to reach the Akatsuki base. So we'll have to get around that. He sighed, running a hand through his white hair, feeling exasperated. They'll take roughly an hour just to get to the organization since they had to walk the speed of an average civilian in order to not arouse suspicion. Just great, he hissed under his breath. Naruto perked. What was that, Hiruzen? I'll tell you later. Jiraiya said, sighing in resignation at the nickname. He'll have to explain to them later, because the mother and daughter were in a particularly good mood. He didn't want to spoil it. Reading the notes at the side, he smirked. That spy was good. Hanzo ruled the civilians using fear, sending ninja around the streets to guard. The Akatsuki are their hope, as news spread quickly that they were founded for the sake of peace. The people hope the Akatsuki will break Hanzo's way of governing and take power. Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan, being the founders, are the most high up in the Akatsuki. Yahiko is the official leader, but it seems that Nagato is the leader in the shadows. Information on Hanzo is tightly kept away from the public. I had trouble, but I suspect he has some ties with Danzogano. I haven't found solid evidence, but a man who had been dressed as a root umbu had been secretly meeting Hanzo. Their next meeting will be in 3 days from when you will receive this paper. Jiraiya frowned. 3 days? That would mean the ambush would definitely not happen in 3 days. Well, that's perfect for us. If their talk with the Akatsuki goes well, they could plan something against Hanzo's ambush. He jumped when a small body dropped onto his back. What to thinking so hard for, Hiruzen? Naruto peered over his shoulder, noticing the crinkled paper. Oh, the map? Where's Kushina? Jiraiya asked, looking around the room. Naruto replied while she read the paper. She went down to ask for another sheet. We're missing one. I see, Jiraiya sighed, and waved her away. Shoo. I'll talk about this when she gets back. It's good news. Ah, come on. You can tell me now and I'll tell her for you. Come in. Now? No? How about now? Naruto fluttered her eyes open, dazed by the warmth of the water around her. Where am I? Her voice echoed in the sewage-like room, before remembering. Odd, she thought with a frown. Why, even if it was only for a moment, couldn't she recall that this was her mindscape? She turned around to face the giant fox behind the bars. She tipped her head in as a small greeting. Long time no see for Ball. The demon stayed silent for a while, confusing her. He finally sat up, making himself look much larger than when he was on his stomach. It would be a good idea to take that seal on your forehead off as soon as possible, he said, and strangely, there was no malice or a hint of a sneer in his voice. Bemused, she furrowed her brows. Why? She had almost forgotten about it. You really haven't noticed? She grew impatient. Noticed what? That thing is slowly blurring up the memories you hold dear. You haven't realized this only because you thought it was because of the one that Sage removed. What are you talking about? Naruto rubbed her temples tiredly. Ugh, I'm starting to get a headache. The Sandaime doesn't know enough about that memory seal. The faster you take it off, the safer your memories will be. Naruto glared. The old geezer knows what he's doing. You humans are much too gullible, he sneered. That thing only works for a while. A month at most. It would have been longer if you didn't have that seal the whirlpool kunoichi casted on you. She widened her eyes. What happens after that? It accelerates the speed of losing your memories by, well, you could say freezing your spiritual chakra. That's what that thing was doing. Too much. That side effect grew stronger because of the think of a name to call that damn Yuzushio kunoichi seal. Oh, Naruto blinked, before knitting her brows together in thought. Age sucker? To think that that's the best you can come up with. Hey, the first name I thought of was Tits Remover, but I figured you would hate that so I chose Age Sucker instead. He scoffed. Very well. The side effect grew stronger because of the Age Sucker, since it weakens your chakra. Wait, if that forehead seal is freezing my chakra, how can I still think? It doesn't actually freeze it so it won't move anymore, you idiot. I meant that it slows your spiritual chakra down drastically, but not to the point you won't be able to think or remember anything. Oh, and the reason you probably didn't notice this was because you didn't pay attention in class and already knew what you had to remember. Besides, your memory span is that of a goldfish's. Goldfish? What the heck are you talking about? Apparently, the insult was lost on her. What an idiot, he thought with a scowl. You should hurry. Your mental form would start to get closer to the age you are now reduced to outside. Well, that won't be good. Of course not, idiot. Because it would remind me every time you come here that I'm stuck inside a pathetic, weak-looking brat. Alright. All I have to do is take this darn thing off, right? Yes, but I doubt. Well, why didn't you just say so? Oblivious to his downright fuming look, she noticed that she was starting to wake up. Oh, well, gotta go now, furball. Kurama growled irritably, before taking a deep breath. I doubt that perverted sage or your mother would be able to do anything about it. Naruto's jaw hung loose, almost snapping off before Kushina slammed it back up. The three were walking in the forest, veiling their chakra to pass off as ordinary civilians. Most likely there would be chakra sensors since they were very close by a station. What do you mean you can't take it off? I can't. He sighed. That seal's ancient, as the Hokage might have told you, and it's forbidden. I can't have learned it, and neither could Kushina. Boo, but Gigi wouldn't have used it unless it's absolutely necessary, I know. Jiraiya raked a hand through his hair, now loose without the metal plate he usually had. And it was. But he didn't know the side effects like Kyubi did, and thought it would hold for much longer. There were no other seals that could hold as much as 16 years of memories, and even if there were they wouldn't have lasted even as long as 2 weeks. No way. Naruto casted her eyes down in disappointment, and kicked a pebble. But this is serious, Jiraiya pondered, a worried frown on his face. For a while, either of the three spoke. Kushina didn't like the tense atmosphere, and decided to lighten their mood up a bit. We're lucky that there's no rain, huh? She said with a smile. We can just say we're on a walk if we happen to cross paths with ninjas. Naruto grinned, appreciating her light talk. Yeah, they can't say no to that. And then it was quiet again, the three of them having nothing to say. It stayed that way until they were a small distance away from the station. They eyed the small cement building warily, and only after they were meters away did they start grinning in triumph. The watchers must have thought that no one would be out here on a weekday. Don't lower your guard, Jiraiya warned them. The Akatsuki might see us as a threat. We'll have to uncover our chakra so they'll know we're heading to them, and hopefully they will understand that we come in peace. What are we, aliens? Naruto thought dryly, but nodded. She never planned on lowering her guard, not for a moment. By the time they reached the tall tower, slightly obscured in the dark clouds. If anything, the Akatsuki base looked haunted. Naruto gulped at the thought of ghosts, praying to her fabulously and amazingly awesome gods that the inside would be different from the out. After all, you can't judge a book by its cover, right? Well, she hoped she was right. She noticed that Kushina and Jiraiya had walked on without her, now ready to open the tall metal door. Hey. Wait for me. Kakashi now felt a tiny bit of respect, just a tiny bit, towards Naruto. Doing a prank every week was tough, but that girl would be sure to have 3 done without breaking a sweat. Now he, Mika, and the idiot Kippei, though his plans are great, the older boy loved grating on his nerves, were running away from their Chunin teachers after another failed prank. The adults were absolutely surprised to see the perfect little 4-year-old student participating in something like this. It caught them off guard every time, but the effect was starting to wear off, so the 3 children were being chased all around the school. They reached the staircase, having trouble deciding whether to go up or down. The enemy was closing in. They can hear the fast footsteps from the corridors. Up? Down? They snapped their heads to the upper staircase, hearing shouts. The 3 immediately decided on going down, skipping a few steps, only to bump into one pink-haired, orange-clothed, very angry Chunin. Well, at least their prank had been partly successful. If we finish this right, Toby will never be a part of the Akatsuki. Naruto clenched her fists at the sight of the young man, and those 3 will be saved from their suffering. Her azure eyes stared back at his Rinnegan with determination. Nagato will still hope for true peace. She inhales slowly, so please. What business do you have here? He asked, his unwavering, unique eyes watching them. Konan stood not too far behind him, and Yahiko was calmly walking up to them. The 3's eyes flickered toward Jiraiya when he came out of the shadows, revealing himself. Nagato had glanced at Kushina's red hair that was similar to his own, before he gazed back down at the blonde, fearless girl in front of him. Let this end well. What business do you have here? The man repeated emotionlessly, sharp eyes expecting an answer. He felt more than saw his childhood friend's bemusement, happiness and suspicion towards Jiraiya's sudden appearance, mostly because he had also felt the same. What was the man, their teacher, doing here? After all this time? The white-haired sage grimly gazed back at him. We're here to save the Akatsuki, Nagato. Our organization is not in need of any help. The red-haired man's brows drew close in confusion, and the corners of his lips slightly curled down. Furthermore, if there were any problems, we'd be able to fix it, even if it were a well-planned ambush? The Akatsuki's attention was caught by the young blonde girl. Many eyes widened in incredulity at what she was sprouting. Before anyone could shout in outrage, Yahiko spoke, and Naruto noticed that his voice had some sort of warmth to it compared to the cold, dead flatness she remembered. What do you mean? You're meeting with Hanzo. It's soon, isn't it? She asked with a dark look on her face. I know you have your suspicions, Nagato. He's changed. Hanzo does not wish for peace as much as he did before. The power he had over his village, the power he has to beat his enemies, that all got into his head and changed him thoroughly. He loves his position as ruler of AIM, and knows that this group, Akatsuki, is quickly gaining the people's favor over himself. Naruto's lips curled downwards into a disgusted sneer. He plans to take it out of the picture using a little help from Danzo. You know who that is, don't you? Yahiko's eyes widened and narrowed. He also had his doubts, but how could he believe the words of a little girl? That may be true, but how would we know if you're not one of his subordinates? Konan had spoken before him, her eyes angry and accusing. You 3 are clearly from Konoha, and Danzo's actions wouldn't threaten your village. In fact, it would benefit it. Kushina sighed. This may make Konoha sound rather soft, but we in the Hokage do not wish for another village's suffering. This organization is the hope of Amageku's peace, and possibly the world's. Yahiko's eyes widened at that. World peace? Naruto stared at him for a moment, which did not go unnoticed by the other 2 Akatsuki founders, and sighed. What Hanzo intends to do is take Konan hostage, and make Nagato kill Yahiko. I'm guessing that it'll end with one of you 3 dying, and if it was Yahiko, Nagato's idea of peace would be tainted. He'll most likely start believing that world peace can only be obtained by force as the years pass by, most likely charged by Toby's plan, Naruto didn't say, for the sake of keeping her identity as time traveler a secret. This may only be a prediction, but I believe it would turn out like this, especially if other people have the same thoughts. Konan kept her eyes on her. Introduce yourself. Having not expected the command, the girl blinked. Now that she thought about it, she hadn't actually said anything about herself, and just got straight to the point. Oops. Uzumaki Naruto, she said, but noticed another gaze on her. She turned to Nagato and stared back, waiting for him to talk. She noticed how recognition sparked in his eyes at her given name and grinned. You, he began slowly, do not look like an Uzumaki. Your facial features are similar to the woman, who I presume is one from her red hair though. Who is your father? Namikaze Minato, she sighed. We prefer not to use his last name for the sake of my safety and my mother's in the future since he'll surely gain more and more fame by then. Konan still did not look away. Just who was this Naruto? This young girl, who looked no older than 4 or 5 years old? If what she had predicted was all thought up on her own, then she would have a lot of potential. If Naruto were to join the Akatsuki when she had grown older, she would make a wonderful addition. Not to mention, the woman can tell that the blonde is a chakra powerhouse. You didn't have to be a chakra sensor to realize that. Jiraiya watched his 3 old students with a hidden smile. He couldn't believe it. They were actually here, alive and kicking as he had hoped. The reason they hadn't sent a letter was probably due to the busy work of running a group as large as the Akatsuki, and in consideration of him and his village's safety as well as their own. If their connection had been found out and misunderstood by Hanzo, he would think that the Akatsuki were planning something behind his back with Konohagakure. Well, he wanted to think that that was what's going on in their mind, otherwise they simply grew tired of contacting him. He really hoped that wasn't the case. I believe you. He finally smiled, surprising some of his subordinates. I doubt Jiraiya-sensei would be so underhanded as to team up with Hanzo and betray us, anyways. Kushina visibly showed relief, her shoulders losing their tenseness. She had feared that there would be a fight that would definitely result with them failing, and was glad, terribly glad, that it had been the opposite. Everything was fine and dandy. Kushina was glad that Jiraiya had been there, otherwise they might have to reveal Naruto's big secret. They decided to keep it that way, a secret, so that there won't be a possibility of it leaking out to public. A shinobi like Naruto didn't, if not never at all, come often and would surely pique other villages' interests. After all, how many Jinchuriki were there who have the ability to time travel? Never mind the fact that Naruto had only done it once, and it would probably stay that way unless she studied the seal. She still had knowledge of what would happen at about 25 years into the future. Of course anyone would want to use a person like her for money. Yahiko sighed, and a wide grin was now on his face. A girl as young as you shouldn't put on such an adult face. Smile, smile. His joyfulness had made the others chuckle and shake their heads in amusement. Well, come on inside. Hey, Tsukiko? A random lady, probably in her teens, perked up with a surprised squeak. Would you mind switching on the lights upstairs? The darkness is a little offsetting. And no, sir. She squeaked again with a fierce blush, before scurrying off. Conan smirked, turning to the man. Did you do that on purpose? Though the question was supposed to be a light one, Naruto could hear a slight strain to her voice. Jealousy, maybe? Do what? Yahiko asked as innocent as day. He was answered with a light smack on his arm. Kushina and Naruto blinked, not sure how to react at the sudden change in their behaviors. Were the two now lowering their guard around them? Jiraiya looked utterly relieved. I think I get what she means now, Mika said to them, snapping Kakashi out of his thoughts. He had begun eating with the group, telling himself that it was only for the time being, until he fully learned the arts of stealth. Shizuka raised a brow. Who? Naruto. Oh. What did she say? Mika grinned, first taking another chomp of her rice ball. Oh, just a few things on how to make pranks more successful. I swear she's a genius. Genma rolled his eyes. Of course she is. Not every 4-year-old can suddenly catch up with a class meant for kids much older than her. You talk a lot these days, Mika noted happily, sipping some of her apple juice. And didn't you say she was an idiot? She acts like an idiot. Kakashi blinked. The orange-haired girl furrowed her brows and tilted her head in confusion. You never said that. Of course I didn't. It wouldn't be wise to spoil her fun. Kakashi frowned. What did he mean? Inwardly shaking his head, he asked, Is she good at it? At what? Mika raised a brow, before smirking. You mean at pranks? He nodded, and her smirk widened. Good isn't enough to describe her skills, young one. Genma scoffed at her words. She's a pro. A pro, Kakashi. Shizuka didn't look up from her book as she spoke. I suggest learning, if you could even call it that, from Naruto instead of Mika. She's probably smarter than her, anyways. Hey, that said a scowl, fortunately hidden by his mask, on Kakashi's face, but nevertheless he nodded. Now that he thought about it, the orange-haired civilian's pranks seemed a bit minor compared to Naruto's. What the blonde did was always big. Like the time she had blasted the classroom orange and scribbled all over the windows, tables, chairs, and the blackboard. None of the teachers knew who did it, and didn't suspect that it was her, while the students congratulated the girl behind their backs. In fact, whenever Naruto did or at least participated in doing a prank, she and the group weren't found or ratted out. The reason they weren't exposed was the teachers hadn't gotten enough evidence that it was them, though they did have an inkling of suspicion. The group wasn't told on either since the class had been eternally grateful. They had gotten to miss class, after all. While she was still on the goody two-shoes list, Kakashi was currently sinking further down the troublemaking brats list. Flown away was his perfect student status. One thing he was surprised, and secretly glad, about was that his father didn't look the least bit disappointed. Rather, the man looked absolutely relieved. When the homeroom teacher had suggested for little Kakashi some counseling, Sakumo merely waved away his concern with a laugh. Well, he guessed pranking had its good points. But that didn't mean he would keep doing it. No, he'll get rid of that daily routine once he's fully mastered the skill. His father would surely get upset when he's had enough, but to fully master the skill would mean waiting for Naruto's return. What exactly was he missing? What did he need to do to make his prank absolutely foolproof? Unlike Uzumaki Naruto, the pranking king, because she certainly did not act like a girl, he can never get all of his pranks to hit its mark 100% accurately. Sometimes, when he's alone, his ideas would backfire and Kakashi would end up with a rotten fish, honey, and natto in his hair. Taking off the smell and the stickiness was absolute hell. He also had trouble finding and getting out the eyeball, since it got stuck all the way to his scalp. Genma's voice thankfully prevented him from the horrors of reliving his worst prank. So are you sure you don't know where she went? Yes. All he knew was she was off to a high-class mission. He hadn't listened to her after that part of her announcement. Do you know what she's doing now? The older boy stared at him, and truthfully it was starting to annoy Kakashi. Yes. She's on a mission. Genma raised a brow. A mission? Missions for academy students don't last this long. All D ranks are often 2 to 3 days at maximum, and those are rare. Not to mention, all D ranks are done in groups. Kakashi shrugged, not bothered to answer anymore. Mika noticed his sour expression. It was hard not to, even with the mask. Now that she thought about it, Kakashi never really did seem to like the Naruto. She had thought it was just a little facade since he was embarrassed, but was she wrong? Do you not like her? Shizuka had beaten her to it, but she hadn't particularly wanted to ask the question anyway. She waited for the boy to answer, expecting him to nod a yes immediately, but was surprised to see that he had actually taken some time and consideration with his reply. The boy disliked, maybe even along the borders of hate, Naruto. He was sure of that. So why couldn't he answer? Why was he hesitating? Normally, when the blonde was around or spoken of, it would set a scowl to his face. How was now, when the question had been practically thrown out of nowhere, any different? Kakashi realized he was being silent for too long, and the other three had been still waiting for his answer. He began eating his rice ball again slowly as he pondered. Without meaning to, his thoughts had drifted to the flashbacks of Naruto bringing him back to his house after their secret midnight training sessions. He had fallen asleep again, and woke up for a brief moment because of the particularly chilly wind. Naruto was carrying him up the wall of the house with undeniable effort that time, but from the way she had been hustling him onto her back with his arms around her shoulders, it seemed like she had done it a few times, which explains how he woke up at his own bed without being able to recall how he got home in the first place. Another thought that showed up in his mind was when Naruto had given him a notebook during class. He had been absent the previous week due to sickness, and missed out on a lot of classes. She was downright tired, even the sensei had chastised her for it, and when he looked inside the book he realized why. The pages were written fully with notes, all in clean, neat handwriting. He had also noticed the way some parts of the paper were worn, as if she had erased it numerous times. The places where she had drawn diagrams in particular. He knew the girl never really listened in class since she already learned everything, but when he read it he knew that the notes were their teacher's exact words. He frowned in bemusement. Why on earth would she go so far for him? He could have just borrowed a random guy's notes and copied from them, so why did she take on such trouble? Kakashi clenched his fists, confusion warping his mind. Did he like her, as a friend, of course? He appreciated the care she literally showered him with, and recently, although he wouldn't openly admit it, he enjoyed her company, when she wasn't being loud and idiotic. The more he thought, the more confused he became. Don't worry your little head over it, Genma said exasperatedly, ruffling the younger boy's hair. Just think of the answer later. Class is going to start soon, and I really don't want to be late. Mika eyed him. Yup, talking a lot more these days, shut up. Naruto blinked down at the dog, tiny with mostly black fluffy fur and eyes that shone like sapphire orbs. Its paws, like the bottom of its snout to its chest, belly, and the underside of its tail, were white, and the puppy's little ears were folded cutely. The puppy also had white spots right above its eyes, almost like eyebrows. She crouched, watching the little ball of black and white fur stare back at her. It seemed to glare. She slowly reached to pet its head, and pouted when the little doggy growled. Conan had noticed the two of them and walked over. That's a dog Yahiko found in an alley. Apparently his owner threw him away. Poor thing, she sighed, getting the puppy's treat. He's only a few months old, too. Why would anyone try to throw away a puppy as cute as him? Naruto asked, irked. No wonder the dog was so standoffish towards her and Conan. I think it was because the owner had plenty of its other siblings, and he was just the weakest one out of all of them. When Yahiko found him, the dog's physical and possibly mental state was horrifying. Conan shook her head in dismay at the memory. If he had found that dog a day later he probably wouldn't have brought it alive. What the? The girl stared down at the puppy with wide eyes full of shock and disbelief. That's horrible. Happens a lot, especially in tough times like these. Oh, that sadly made sense. The puppy in front of her was probably a husky, and would grow up to be big. The owner might have been breeding dogs to get an extra hand, paw, at work, and chosen the strongest out of the bunch. She wrinkled her nose in disgust. Couldn't the guy just give the little pup to a neighbor or at least sell him to a nice, loving home? Well, I'm glad Yahiko-san found him. Conan smiled slightly. I do too. Naruto suddenly got up, eyes blinking, as if she just remembered something. Darn, I forgot I had to go to Nagato-san. Oh, I believe he was somewhere around the second floor. He's still discussing a few things with the other members for the upcoming event. So he's busy? Disappointment was clear in the little girl's voice, causing the young woman to wince. No, he's most likely finishing up, so go check up on him. I believe he'll have some time open for you. Oh. Okay, thanks, Konan-ichan. Said woman blinked at the affectionate term, watching Naruto hurriedly run off, stop, and wave goodbye at her and the dog. She rolled her eyes, but a smile was present on her face as she tossed the puppy behind her its snack. Naruto eventually slowed down to a walk when she entered the floor Conan had told her to go to. It was dark, but the closed door she heard deep, muffled voices come from had light seeping out of the gap between it and the wooden floor. She opened the door cautiously, just enough so she can peek her eye through the room, before she immediately jumped away.